Hello and welcome to Too Many Movies, the podcast where we discuss DVDs, Blu-rays, and even the occasional VHS tape. I'm your host, Hal. With me is Lazy. Hi, Lazy.
Must be weird not having anyone come on you.
Boy, do I know that feeling.
That's what Sebastian said Ursula in The Little Mermaid, 1989.
Yeah. Man, everybody got AIDS and shit. All right, before we get too carried away, we have another person in this call on today's episode. Antic, introduce yourself. This is your introduction to the Too Many Movies universe. How you doing?
I'm doing great, but yeah, hi. I'm Animated Antic, or Antic for short. I'm an animation reviewer. You might have seen me online on social media. I also review animated movies on YouTube. Been doing this since 2016, and also just been doing some research on a lot of projects and video essays. And yes, I have been doing very well.
Very good. Well, so we're here to discuss some animated movies. I have a handful of DVDs and Blu-rays of animated stuff, so I was just like, Antic, what do you want to talk about? And you just named off a bunch of movies, and we picked 2 Disney movies. So we're going to be talking about those. Let's start with the oldest one, from
101 D's Nuts.
The oldest one, D's Nuts. 101 D's Nuts.
101 D's Nuts.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. 101 Dalmatians, 1961, Disney. I'm actually really glad you recommended, or you wanted to talk about this one, Antic, because I really like this one. This is a movie that I definitely watched a lot as a kid, and I never really saw it as like a favorite, like I would something like Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast or something like that. But I feel like watching it over and over, like into adulthood, I've realized, yeah, this is probably one of my favorite Disney movies. So I'm happy for that. Lazy, what are your opening thoughts on 101 Dalmatians?
It good. I didn't love it personally though. Not gonna lie.
Right.
I was going from like a 6 to a 7 after I watched it, because I don't even know if I've ever seen this movie before. If I ever did see it, it probably would have been like when I was like an infant though.
Right.
Because like I'm gonna be real, like, yeah, because I know like both of you really love it, but like I guess like for the average person though, is like 101 Dalmatians like the first Disney movie you think of? Like probably not.
Yeah, no. Yeah. This is, like I said, this is definitely not like Renaissance or classic Disney era levels of favoritism when it comes to our belovedness, which is weird because even though this, you wouldn't really think of this as being one of the more beloved Disney movies, and yet there's so many spin-offs and sequels that Disney's like, no, we got to do it again. It's like, why? You know, like
the movie was a massive hit when it came out in 1961.
Right.
Because many of the movies that came out in the 50s were not well received. Alice in Wonderland, Lady and the Tramp, and Sleeping Beauty did not get good reviews.
But those are such classics.
I know, and critics did not like them back in the day. Some of them made money, but they weren't, as beloved as they were now. 101 Dalmatians was critically acclaimed instantly when it came out. It got Disney's best reviews since Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and it was a big success at the box office. The movie was produced very cheaply, and we'll get to it in a bit because there is a lot of behind the scenes information that I know about this movie, because this movie definitely had a very interesting production, and it came out at a very interesting time for the animation studio, because this was definitely a turning point for them when Walt was starting to get a lot more hands off, because he was focusing more on the live action movies and television, and also building Disneyland in Anaheim.
Yeah, that old chestnut. the fucking amusement park. Yeah.
I want to say this like the movie, I think it was actually its success. I was reading it too, that apparently like it convinced Disney to keep like the Walt Disney Animation like studio alive because he was thinking of shutting it down for a brief time, like before the movie came out and was a huge hit, and that's what convinced him to keep it going and that kind of thing. Because I know Sleeping Beauty, like before that, was like a big flop. I think before a few years before this came out, right? Right.
Wow.
Yes, it was. The movie was very costly to produce. It was made on Super Technorama, which was like a new format, basically made during the CinemaScope boom, and it was a very detail-oriented movie, which is pretty evident when you look at it. Ivan Earl's backgrounds have so much detail put into them with the colors and the leaves and just the vast sophistication and color palettes of the characters, and it cost a lot of money to do. And this movie had a very lengthy production. Sleeping Beauty took about 7 years to make.
Oof.
And yeah, and that's because yeah, it kept getting delayed. It was supposed to come out in 1957, and it got pushed back to 1959 because of just how elaborate the animation in that movie is, just the detail in the backgrounds, the fact that Walt was not working on the movie as much as he should because he was working on other priorities, and also just the fact that there was just a lot of detail being put into it. And the movie was one of the highest grossing of 59, but yeah, it wasn't a financial success, even though it made back its budget, because it was so costly to produce.
Right.
So yeah, this movie, technically did keep the animation studio alive. It's not the first time this happened. Like, if we're talking first time a Disney animated movie saved the studio, you could say Snow White, because they literally Walt Disney mortgaged his house to finish that movie. And then the second time was after the war happened, was with Cinderella, because they needed to make a movie to bring back the financial numbers, and the war had been over, and they figured, well, let's try to make a movie again because the European and Asian markets are open again.
Yeah. Let's make a real movie.
Was like Sleeping Beauty like almost like the Cleopatra for its time, where like it made a bunch of money, but it lost money because it cost so much to make.
Yeah, I'd say it was a lot. I wouldn't say it was as bad as Cleopatra, because Cleopatra legitimately got 20th Century Fox completely on life support. Like, I think they even closed down the studio for a weekend and hoped and prayed the movie would do well just to save it, because it was this 4-hour extravaganza. And the only reason it made money was because the public were just so fascinated by Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton's marriage.
That rules.
Well,
yeah, that's so funny. No, so yeah, okay. 101 Dalmatians was not that. It was not a failure. It was a success. And honestly, yeah, you know what? I think, I guess back in the day, it was a bigger hit. So I can understand, Lazy, someone like you, not really growing up with it as often. And so you just kind of see it as like, it's good. I can totally agree to that. Because it's not as extravagant as something like those early Renaissance films, or even, the big Snow White or big Cinderella movies of that time. It's definitely, because it's not really fantasy oriented. It's supposed to be kind of like real life. You're just getting it from the perspective of the dogs, and that's where like the fantastical element comes in, is that you understand what the dogs are saying.
Yeah, and that was a big reason why a lot of critics loved the movie back in the day, was because that was when Disney started to experiment away from just the fantastical.
Right.
And oddly enough, the only person that didn't like this was actually Walt himself. He didn't like that this movie didn't have that fantastical edge. He hated the look of this movie for some reason. I don't know why. And yeah, and I completely disagrey with them over the look of this movie, because I love the look of 101 Dalmatians. I love what Ken Anderson did with the xerography look of this movie. It's very modern, taking a lot of inspiration from artists like Ronald Searle and the modern art movements that was starting to shape way in animation. You could see this starting to affect many of Disney's peers, like UPA and Warner Brothers. like with the way that the modern art movements like cubism and like expression and just like eventually, you know, other movements that were happening in the 50s just bleeding way into
the early 60s,
the animated films. Yeah,
and
they're
then
bleeding into the animated
yeah,
films.
because you watch this movie and it does have that very like jazzy 50s kind of feel to it, but it's in 1961, so it's kind of like, you know, kind of the leftovers, but like really taking advantage of that style. I like how kind of dirty and disgusting London looks, but like it's not so much a Taxi Driver disgusting where it's like, no, this is what it really looks like in real life. It's like still a fantastical version of, you know, dirty, dark London, you know, because they're, you know, there's those scenes where they're like running through London and in the streets of London. It's like really dark and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was apparently inspired by some British cartoonist named Ronald Searle, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Ronald
Yeah,
Searle. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Anderson really took inspiration a lot from Ronald Searle. He basically was instructed to like use a lot of art with a ballpoint pen, and basically what he did was he drew them and then Xeroxed his work onto like paint colored backgrounds, which were just like these like very just broadly painted like simple backgrounds with just like colors that are like square-esque and whatnot, and then they just laid the Xerox work on top of it to make something that's a lot more distinct and different than anything that was coming out of Disney at the time. It's a movie that very much feels like it came out of a pen, which I think really helps enhance the look of this movie, because this movie basically is embodying the Xerox style that eventually kind of set the tone for many of the movies that followed throughout the late 60s into the 70s and even the early 80s, which is that the animation got this scratchier look to it, which was definitely the result of the Xerox machine, because they before 101 Dalmatians, the animation when the animation was completed, when they went to the ink and paint department to be put onto cells, they traced it on top of it with ink. They basically traced very carefully with ink, and it was a very, very costly procedure. And they realized that this would cost a lot of money and they couldn't do that anymore, especially after Sleeping Beauty. And then Ub Iwerks, who had kind of moved from animation role into doing like special effects work for the studio, was playing around with Xerox technology, and he discovered that he could Xerox an animation paper and get the black line work onto a cell. So all the ink and paint department had to do was just flip over the cell and paint on top of it, and then it was ready to go. And it really ended up working beneficially for this movie, because with Dalmatians, dogs that have these very distinct black spots, it saved a lot of time and money. So basically they could just Xerox it and not having to worry about tracing all those dots and filling them in, you know?
Okay, yeah. Zero, and again, the black and white dog. Let's just do 101 of them. There we go. We can do this now.
Yeah,
that's great.
I was wondering because I don't remember if I've like watched this movie before, so I was like waiting, like, oh, like it starts off with like 15 dogs, so like when are they yet to like 101 of them? I was like wondering throughout like most of it.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, they stole 99 others.
They kidnapped a bunch of other ones.
Yeah. Well, technically, they bought and paid for the 84 when they stole the 15 puppies from Pongo and Perdita, and this was If you're wondering where this came from, this was actually based on a book written by Dodie Smith.
Yes,
and Disney was known for changing a lot of things from the book, and this one is actually surprisingly a bit more faithful than other adaptations they have done over the years. Okay. And Dodie Smith actually was someone that wanted Disney to actually make this book into an animated movie while she was writing it. So she was very glad to hear that he was adapting this story into a movie. And unlike other offers that Disney adapted in their work, mainly P.L. Travers with Mary Poppins, she actually did like this movie. And Walt definitely kept her up to date with behind the scene, what was happening behind the scenes. He sent some of the story sketches done by Bill Peet for the movie, and she was a big fan of them. She thought they were better than the illustrations, especially the design of Cruella de Vil, which was just this very elaborate design with her black and white hair and this fur coat and just this very skeletal body.
Yeah.
Like, it's very distinct.
I've always liked that juxtaposition with Cruella in this movie specifically, how she's like this very, very thin, like, twig woman. Like, I mean, because she's old and bony, but she has like this gigantic fur coat, just kind of like making up for her skeletal body, you know, to just show, like, to give her presence. I mean, her personality is already, like, you know, giving her a lot of presence. Like, whenever she's on screen, your attention is entirely on her because she's always moving. She's very big and theatrical and always talking. But, like, even on the visual scale, like, she has, like, this gigantic fur coat that takes up, like, the majority of the screen whenever you see her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. She loves killing dogs. Her and Christy Nome should team up.
Yeah.
Dog. She really wants that dog-skinned coat. She really wants them to pop those dogs in the head and skin their little butts off.
I love her, and Cruella realizes that maybe animal cruelty is the real punk rock.
Because she's a punk rocker. Yes, she is.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
I mean, well, let's be real. It's very contrarian of her to want to kill animals. Yeah. So I guess it is pretty punk rock to animal cruelty. Yeah. So 101 Dalmatians, obviously the movie's about the Dalmatians, but I think it's safe to say that Cruella is probably the most popular thing to come out of this movie. Because she's often seen amongst, like, Disney's pantheon of great animated villains. Like, she's up there with Jafar, with Ursula, with Frollo. So, you know, say what you want about the movie, but it's undeniable that Cruella in her own right is a bit of an icon, a bit of a Disney icon.
Wait, do you know Antic, do you know what Hal thinks of the Cruella 2021 movie?
I do not. I
thinks it's the greatest movie ever. He likes it more than The Dark Crystal.
Yeah, it's better. it is better than my favorite movie ever made, The Dark Crystal. Yeah, I love Cruella more than The Dark Crystal.
Well, obviously, this is from the same director behind the brilliant Mr. Woodcock.
Mr. Woodcock. Wait, really?
Why don't you suck my woodcock?
Yeah, Craig Gillespie. To be fair, that movie was not his fault. That movie was meddled with behind the scenes. But yeah,
I've heard of that movie.
Mr. Woodcock.
It's not good. It's not worth your time. Anyway, but yeah, yeah. Anyway, getting back to Cruella. Yeah,
back on Cruella.
This character is very, like, elaborate. She has, like, such a boisterous personality, and it mainly comes down to the animation, which was done by one of Disney's 9 old men animators, Mark Davis. This was the last major animation project he did at Disney. He eventually moved to the Imagineering department to work on the theme parks. And boy, what a character to go out on! Just one character, especially coming off of Maleficent, because that was the character he animated before. And and both of those villains are very different. Like, Maleficent's a lot more calm and collected, and Cruella is just very temper fused and boisterous.
Yeah,
and
over the top.
And you really have to give credit to Betty Lou Gerson's performance, because she knows how to make this character work. She perfectly balances her with being crazy without being so over the top where it feels like a caricature. Like, she never feels like a caricature in this movie, because she just has this electric personality and comes across, and she's able to showcase this craziness that feels very much watchable. Like, whenever she enters the room, you just can't take her eyes off her, especially as it just builds to the crazy climax where she just all but loses her mind during the car chase, and you have that great, amazing close-up where you just see her insane eyes.
Those eyes kind of scared me as a kid. Just like when she drives from over the, like, under the bridge and, like, back onto the road, and her eyes are just full of, like, redness, and then there's that shot where you can just see her eyes. I remember being, like, obviously really little when I saw this movie, just being like, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with this woman?
Yeah, I remember
that's actually like my favorite part of the movie, but I mean, I still liked all of her scenes. I think my issue is I kind of wish there was, like, more of her in the movie, though.
Sure, yeah.
I think that her henchmen are, like, they're interesting at first, but I feel like as the movie kind of goes on, I feel like they don't really have as much to do that's, like, really interesting to follow, if that makes sense.
I'm
Yeah, that makes sense.
Every time, when the henchmen were like on screen, like the two, like, I forgot their names,
Jasper
but
and Horace.
Jasper and Horace. Horace, like I kind of wish that Cruella was just there instead, though. It's just like the main villain and just doing everything herself or something.
They're from the gas company,
Yeah.
electric company.
Electric. No,
Electric
call
company.
for any inspection.
Yeah. Around the Johnny Ona and off to the park.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I still don't like it, Jasper. I'm a huge fan.
Horace, I got to tell you about that thinking.
I'm a huge fan of hired goon characters in general.
Yeah.
But I can understand, like, you know what? Out of every Horace and Jasper, I don't know, like, fucking version I've seen in these Disney movies, these ones are my definitive Jasper and Horace. I'm a huge fan of J. Pat O'Malley as a Disney voice actor, because, like, I don't know, he just has like this distinct gruff voice that I just love. Because he also plays the Colonel in the movie, the little dog Colonel. And I just love his voice performance. 15 stolen puddles of balderdash.
Balderdash. I really like Jasper and Horace, because I think one of the things that this movie does so well compared to other movies where they have like stupid henchmen is that they make them stupid, but they're not too stupid, because they don't fall into a lot of traps that a lot of family movies or even animated movies do, where the henchmen are so stupid you're just like, how do they even function correctly?
Why were they hired by the villain? Yeah, like what were their credentials that they were hired by the villain, that they're the hired goons? Like, you don't understand why they would be threatening at all. I feel
Hercules
like
or something like that.
What was that?
Oh, like Hercules or something like that.
Sure, yeah. Pain and what the fuck is her name? Fuck, how am I? Panic and Pain.
Panic and Pain.
If it's good. I will say, they sometimes do fall a little bit. I think the voice performances is what keeps me going. I just love silly British accents. So these characters could just be saying nonsense, and I'd be like, they're great hired goons.
Yeah. And like, I just love and there's just things I just like the scene where they're just like, they're just like when Cruella is there just wanting them to finally get the job done, and they're just so like out of it. They're like, can't we finish the show first?
Yeah.
You want to see what's my crime?
Oh, yeah. That's also really great. So they, for no reason, like, they didn't need to include this in the movie. They're just watching a television show called What's My Crime, where they just have they just have a fucking criminal just go up, and like, there's these people that are just like, they have to guess what he's been put away for.
Yeah. It was basically a parody of an old 50s TV show called What's My Line, where basically they had to guess the person's occupation.
It's like watching, like, it's almost like kind of like a game show, but it's like set in like a courtroom or something like that.
Yeah.
Essentially now, instead of guessing their job, you're just like, what crime have they committed?
That's so funny. Like, even if I didn't know that was supposed to be a direct parody. Like, even as a kid, I just think that's a really funny idea for a show. That it's like RoboCop absurd, where it's just like, you have this criminal and you have to guess, like, whoa, what's their crime? And and it's even funnier because Jasper and Horace recognize them. They're just like, "Hey, Horace, look, it's old Meathead."
Yeah.
All Meathead wants water.
Yeah, and then I love the detail of it's just like, oh, if the contestants aren't able to guess what your crime is, you get 2 weeks paid vacation once you've paid your debt to society, that is. Again, this has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. You could cut it out entirely, and the movie doesn't change. Like, it's just put in there for extra bits. But I like it because it is funny, and I don't think it really brings the pacing to a halt. The movie is only 79 minutes long, so the fact that it can have like this extra bit and still be relatively short, I mean, that's just a testament to like what they show in the movie.
Yeah, like, and it definitely works too, because it keeps the suspense up, because the sergeant, the cat character, is trying to get the puppies out of there, and I say sergeant.
Yes, Colonel. Yes, Colonel.
I really like their old Ravenscroft. He had such a deep, impactful voice, and it's just and I like that you get that's the thing I really like about this movie, because a lot of like the suspenseful moments and like the big set pieces were done by Wolfgang Reitman, who was before this was animating a lot of like action moments within Disney. Like he did the dinosaurs in Fantasia. He animated many of like the fight scenes in Peter Pan, or the scene with the rat in Lady and the Tramp. So yeah, he basically moved up to the director's chair with Sleeping Beauty, because he did the scene where he did the big climax where Maleficent turns into a dragon and Philip's fighting her. That was his first directorial effort at Disney. So yeah, here, and this is an interesting transitional movie, because before that, Disney, when Disney's movies were directed, each of their sequences were handled by different men, and the three men that did this movie were Reitman, Hamilton Luske, and Clyde Geronimi. Geronimi did not work too long on this movie. I think he only did like 3 sequences of this movie, and then he was fired in 1959 because he had such a volatile attitude and hostile work environment that the animators just finally revolted, and they're like, we're not working for him anymore.
Oh no.
And, yeah, so
I mean, hey, he's got
Hamilton Luske did a lot more of the calmer scenes of the movie.
Okay.
The puppies and the watching the television and the scene in the dairy barn, but a lot of like the big set pieces, like the car chase and the and also, the Twilight Bark scene, that was done by Reitman for this movie.
Okay, yeah, no, that's so. What did Geronimi direct specifically, or do we not know?
I know Geronimi handled a bit of the opening where Cruella revisits her house and is talking to Jasper and Horace, but Hamilton Luske finished it up. But the 2 scenes he completed were the opening scene where Pongo and Perdita first meet, and where Roger and Anita first meet, as well as the scene where the puppies are born and Cruella visits. That was him.
Okay, you know what? In fairness, those are well-directed scenes, because actually we were talking about this because so me and Lazy watched the remake of 101 Dalmatians, the Glenn Close one, a couple days ago.
The one John Hughes worked on.
Yeah. Oh, that was a fucking surprise. Written by John Hughes. What?
Yeah. It's
produced it too.
Yeah, produced it too.
John Hughes's 90s catalog post Home Alone is pretty sad.
It's very sad.
I remember like it had all this like slapstick comedy. Yes. It reminded me of another movie that John Hughes wrote earlier that same decade.
Breakfast Club.
Yeah. Yes, The Breakfast Club.
Known for its slapstick, Breakfast Club.
The way I said Baby's Day Out. Then.
Oh, Baby's Day. Oh, well, that's even better than Breakfast Club. Everyone knows that's Hughes' best work is Baby's Day Out.
Very much so. Very much, yes.
No. Anyway, my point is, my point was, yes, we were talking about it. So that's the scene of Roger and Anita first meeting, and then Pongo and Purdy first meeting. That's a really excellent scene, because it's just like the music is really good. I love the xylophone theme that they have whenever they're walking. I love the way Pongo is animated, how he's like pulling at the leash and Roger's just kind of like being pulled along. Like, I own a dog. That's exactly how they move when you have them on a leash and they're like, on a mission to find what they're looking for. So the fact that like the animators like 60 years ago were able to capture the essence of how a dog moves like that with just a couple lines on paper, like that's incredible. Like it really got me thinking about, not only is the style of the animation really well, but like the fact that it can capture these movements, and animating's not hard. The fact that they can capture these movements and make them look so real is just really, really impressive.
Yeah, there's like a lot of small details with the dogs being animated that I love. Like the scene where we first see Pongo and out the window, he scratches and he yawns, and you see his toes like separate while he's yawning. Or the way that after he sees Perdita, he like runs from the window and he looks at the outside window as he sees them going into the park. Yeah.
Very good movements, I would say.
Very, very well done and defined movements.
Yeah.
And
I thought the love interest at the beginning was kind of a bitch, though. Because like as soon as like Roger like first like went up to her, she was just like, "Oh yeah, fuck off." He just like immediately leaves.
Well, yeah.
And then like as soon as like they run into each other or they're in the water, like, you know what, you've done enough.
Yeah. Well,
It's like, I want to slap that bitch though.
In fairness, I mean, this stranger just kind of comes up. I mean, look, yeah, it is not Roger's fault, and the fact that she's blaming Roger, yeah, that's a bitch move. But
Yeah.
I really like that because it's like this crazy moment. You know, they get kind of tangled in the leash, they fall into the water, and they're all completely soaked. But I love the moment of when they're just like, "Oh, you've done enough," and she like lifts up her like handkerchief.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, here,
Yeah.
take mine." And it's also drenched. And it's just a moment where they just start laughing, and that's it. Like they're laughing, everybody's smiling, and then it fades in on their wedding day. Like, what a great, like, just happy moment. Like it filled me with so much joy, and I just love the simplicity of it. They laugh, and then it just fades into the next scene of them, you know, marrying each other.
It's very simplistic. It
very
doesn't like
simplistic.
spoon feed too much information
Right.
though.
Yeah, it doesn't spoon
Absolutely.
feed too much. It's subtle, but like, you know, it knows what to cut in terms of like, you know, fat, because it's like we don't really need scenes of them talking to each other. You know, we just need that. You know, film is a visual medium. Show, don't tell us these things. Anyway,
Exactly.
so like when we were watching the remake, it's a very convoluted scene of like, oh, Roger ends up in the water because Pongo is like taking him on this 90s chase scene where he's like pulling him on his bike, and then he crashes into a bench and goes into the water.
And also, like, do you remember what the lady said like after like he crashes into the pond?
Yeah.
I don't think he wanted to do that.
It was
Oh my!
It was
You don't
It's
say.
like the line, that was like the funniest line that I think that in the entire movie. Like we immediately like started making jokes after that. It's like guy falls from a 12-story building and fractures his skull. I don't think he wanted to do that.
Yeah, because it's such a dumb line. Like, why would you say that? That it comes
guy
back.
dies a bloody explosion. I don't think he wanted to do that.
It's so dumb that
like,
it comes back around to being the absolute funniest line in the movie.
It is kind of funny, yeah, and
it reminded me of that one line in like Shopping Mall, like where like the girl like has a gun on her and knows how to use it, and she just says, "Dad's a Marine."
Dad's a Marine. Let's go send this fucker a Rambogram.
Yeah, and like the way you talk about it, and yeah, it is different. And I think you really have to give credit to the story artist behind the original movie, which was done by Bill Peake. He storyboarded this movie himself, which was unheard of for Disney. Like before that, and even after that movie, Disney animated movies were storyboarded by tens of hundreds of people. And Pete storyboarded plenty of Disney movies. He did some work on Pinocchio and Dumbo and Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Sleeping Beauty. And Walt basically just left him to do this movie by himself because he trusted him that much as a story artist. Because by that point, Bill was starting to work on a new alternate career because he realized he wasn't going to be at Disney forever, and he started to do some work writing and illustrating children's books because that was something he always wanted to do, and he liked telling stories to his sons. And you could definitely see his storytelling sensibilities come to play here, especially with a moment like that where he just takes this material and really showcases how to make it work with a movie, especially just through the drawing. Because he started off as an artist. He was a painter, and then he joined the story department in the 40s after working a bit as an in-betweener, and he always wanted to tell stories because that was basically his childhood dream.
Yeah, good on him.
And you really compare that to what you're describing with the remake, where it definitely feels convoluted. And when listening to this, I just keep thinking, man, you can definitely tell Disney wanted Hughes to make another Home Alone movie, and it's a real shame that you're describing all this, and based on what I remember of that movie, because I have seen this remake. I also really do not like it.
It's bad.
It's the best one though.
It is the best. Yeah, I will go on record after rewatching it. I still stand by my saying it is probably the best Disney live action remake. It still sucks. It still sucks.
Do you remember what one of the dogs is named?
Dipstick. Oh, Dipstick. That's right.
Oh my god, yeah. But the thing about John Hughes was that he was such a master, especially in the 80s in his early work. He had a master of writing characters that were very delicate and making very sincere, genuine moments. And also he could use the visual medium of film to his advantage, especially with his later stuff. Like there are like moments that you see in like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Uncle Buck where he really lets the visuals breathe.
Yeah.
And it's a shame what happened with Home Alone, because I think what happened, there's a few reasons I think why his career took a downturn in the 90s. One was that he didn't like LA and he wanted to stay closer to Chicago and raise his family, and basically I respect him for doing that. Two was that I think studios saw how monstrous Home Alone became and they wanted more of that type of money, because that movie was an enormous hit and it was really shocking. It came out of nowhere. And I think the other reason why he kind of pivoted toward that was because I think he probably lost his spark, because in 1994 John Candy sadly passed away, and and Hughes was such a good friend with Candy, and it devastated him, and I can imagine that it really made him like very much more disinterested in movies, so I don't blame him.
Honestly, that makes a lot of sense. The timeline lines up pretty damn well with that. Yeah, because this came out in 96, so this was 2 years after Candy died. So you could definitely tell watching this movie. The passion's not there.
And from also what I could tell, this movie, Glenn Close acted like a diva behind the scenes in this movie.
She probably was a diva in real life, and she acted like a diva in the movie, kind of, or like a maniac.
Yeah. Method acting, that works out so well.
Acting.
It's like
in real life.
Yeah, like. It's kind of weird watching her take on Cruella, because this is not the first time she's played a crazy character. Like the first notable famous character she played that was crazy was Alex Forrest in Fatal Attraction, and I really like Fatal Attraction. I don't like the theatrical ending, which was not what Close wanted, because her character was a lot more tragic in the original version and not like a serial horror monster like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. and they basically gave this, like, without spoiling, they basically put in like a ridiculous Friday the 13th-esque slasher ending to the end of Fatal Attraction. It's not good. If you ever see the movie, watch it with the alternate ending. It is so much better. It is so much better.
Yeah, I mean, look, Glenn Close is easily the best part of the remake, because she's taking this very crazy character and, just doing that in live action. But again, I feel like what makes Cruella work in the animated one is like all the moving parts. I feel like Glenn Close in the movie is just being a crazy character, and it's a funny performance, but that's due to the fact that the rest of the movie,
it's just because it's funny because she's crazy. There's not like depth to it,
right? Exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah, I will go to bat by saying the original 101 Dalmatians does show Cruella perfectly. Like, it shows who she is as a character visually. It doesn't explain why she is the way that she is. You kind of figure it out through like hints, through like the way she talks, the way she treats other characters. You don't really need the movie to spell it out why she's like that. You don't need a fucking movie describing why she is the way that she is. And the live action remake in the 90s, it literally is just it's just a crazier performance. You don't really remember her as a character.
And I think crazier is just something you can sum up for this remake compared to the original movie, especially with even when Jasper and Horace go up to the house in the original versus the remake. In the original, they're talking to Nanny, they're trying to enter the house peacefully, and she's just not into it, and eventually they finally get so fed up they're like, okay, let's just break into the house and get the job done. Whereas in the remake, she as soon as the door opens, she immediately tries to slam it and just goes into this ridiculous slapstick-esque scene.
Stupid. Yeah, they just open.
Stupid.
They knock on the door and they're like, "We're robbing you." Like, what? That's a terrible plan. Yeah, and it sucks because I like the actors. I like Hugh Laurie and Mark Williams. I think it's Mark Williams. Yeah, Dr. House and Ron Weasley's father. But they're good actors, but they're not given a whole lot to work with. Whereas in animation, you can make the character as crazy as possible. You can make them do these poses that a live action actor is kind of limited to. It's just the way things are. You could just achieve more with animation. And I feel 101 Dalmatians, the animated version, really achieves these kinds of things better. I'll give the remake a little bit of credit. A lot of it is told visually. You know, there's no celebrity voice actors.
That out too.
Yeah,
because I pointed that out when we were watching it, and I basically said that like I could imagine like today, like I could easily see if it came out today, there would definitely be like a mandate to either make like the animals talk,
right.
or to either like have a narration over it, because like
Right.
especially nowadays, because the reality is that like kids nowadays just have shorter attention spans than they did like in the 1990s.
Yeah.
But I do
Yeah,
appreciate that. I do appreciate that at least like they're like they at least like they took a risk and didn't have the animals like talk or whatever. They basically like trusted like kids would like follow it along just fine. But also like I think William did also mention like after like while we were watching it too. It's just like the movie kind of assumes that you've watched the original though.
Right.
So you can kind of fill in the blanks of what's like happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting you point that out, because I know that in the original book that the dogs do talk, which is why it was put into the original animated movie. And it's interesting you point out that, and I do respect the decision, you know, not to have the dogs talk, because 90s films started to get the idea of having the animals talk or with narration. Like you had, like in the 90s, there was like Milo and Otis with Dudley Moore, and then Homeward Bound from Disney with Don Epchie and Sally Field and Michael J. Fox.
They show Homeward Bound at one point. They're like the dogs are watching television and they're watching the Aristocats, and then they change the channel and it's Homeward Bound. It's like,
oh my god, that is so crazy.
Movies.
They're also like playing a video game version of like 101 Dalmatians with like the original like animated characters on there.
Yeah, movies that Disney owns.
Yeah, and I know that when it comes to like the mouth movement stuff, like the year before this movie, Babe came out, the George Miller movie.
Right.
Well, he produced it, and that was starting to become more of a revolution for animatronics and visual effects, because the way I went back and rewatched clips of it, prepare for this, you know, alongside the original and the remake of 101 Dalmatians. And it's interesting when you compare the two, especially with, you know, the way Babe shows it with the animatronics and also the mouth movements, because the film, and you have to give the credit to like the way the camera is actually moving. The film was shot by Andrew Lesney, who also shot the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And it's a gorgeous movie. And yeah, and you definitely, so for Hughes not to have the dogs talk in this remake, it is a bold decision, and I do like it, and I'm glad that they went there. It's just a shame that the stuff with the humans was just made so much more over the top and nonsensical and boring. And boring, yeah.
Like the most American guy they could have like to have play like a British guy, like Jeff Daniels from like Dumb and Dumber is like Roger, and I just think that's really funny though.
Yeah. Well, because I was explaining, like, I feel like they just put him in there because they're thinking, oh, we can't just have all British people. We got to have an American in there. It's like, okay.
So, like, to, like, appease, like, the American audience that's going to be watching this.
As if the original wasn't already a massive hit and also only had British voice actors. It's like, what are we doing here?
Like, Rod Taylor was...
The difference is that, like, live-action movies are, like, banking off of, like, actors more than, like, an animated film would, because you're not seeing the actors on screen though.
Yeah,
but still,
it's crazy because the animated one did have a big talent behind it, because Rod Taylor voiced Pongo, and he was in movies like he was in The Time Machine the year before. He eventually was in The Birds. Later in his career, his last movie was Inglourious Basterds, where he played Churchill. Pretty big. So big actor in that movie, alongside like other talent like J. Pat O'Malley and Fred Warlock and Betty Lou Gerson, and also I know that and also Martha, like the voice of, I also really like the voice of Nanny, that's Martha Wentworth. I know that she that's not her first voice acting role. She did a little bit of uncredited work in the 40s. She did some Tom and Jerry shorts, and like there was one scream that she did that was so really funny.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that was her, and then years later finding out she did Nanny, and I was like, oh my god, that is actually really funny.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
controversial opinion. Animated version better. So
yeah, very controversial hot
Version
take
is
right
better
there.
because animation just isn't cinema.
well, yeah, that's true too. Yeah, I guess not.
Very true. Very, very true.
Then why is your name Animated Antic if you believe animation isn't cinema?
Better get
Well,
your story
I don't
straight.
know. I picked it when I was a dumb teenager, okay?
Teenagers, they think they know everything. Oh, not yet, Minion. Not yet. I'm just trying to think. What else do I want to talk about with 101 Dalmatians? Have you got something? I mean, I just really like this movie. That's basically my thoughts.
I really like it too. It's just a really cozy, charming little movie. I really like that. I really like that. It was a small movie, and it was also something a little bit more modern from Disney coming out,
Right.
especially in 1961. That was one thing that a lot of audiences gravitated towards, was just seeing the real modern world through an animated lens, like people watching television and just
Yeah.
like driving cars and whatnot.
I mean, I feel like that is kind of a big risk. What I mean by that is, like, we go to movies to kind of see like fantastical worlds, and you want to see something big. Why would you want to go see something real in movies? I know people try to attempt to make movies more realistic, quote unquote, but then it's like, okay, you're kind of losing the appeal of movies, the appeal of like that fantastical feeling that we get whenever we watch movies. But I really feel like this one really captures it in a fantastical way. Like, you really need those dogs to talk, to really get like a different perspective. It's not just about the humans, it's about the dogs mostly.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, because you can make, the reality, you can make the modern world fantastical. You can make that work. And yeah, I feel like this movie really does so. I mean, obviously it's the late 50s, early 60s. Obviously the world is very different than the late 50s, early 60s than it is now. But I still feel as though it's still explored in a way that's really fun. I love all the characters. I love even the music. Like, I really associate a lot of the scenes thanks to the music, the way it's like these themes get stuck in my head.
There's a little piece at the beginning of the movie that Roger's playing on the piano, called "It's a Beautiful Spring Day," and I often pop that in because I just love that piano piece where he's just improvising this melody on the piano. It's just this quiet little tune that I often throw on every once in a while.
Obviously the big like song that came from this movie is the Cruella de Vil song, but it's great that like music like that, the more subtler music, can also be appreciated years later.
Absolutely, yeah. And even then, the only reason and it's kind of interesting that this movie definitely takes a lesser approach with not being a musical, but just having Roger be a songwriter, because it's really the only song in the movie, if we're not, because there is that song on the TV for the Canine Crunchies, but that's just an ad jingle. Yeah, that was actually sung by Lucille Bliss, I think it was. She was I know she did the voice of Anastasia in Cinderella, and she also voiced Miss Bitters on Invader Zim. That was also her.
That's crazy random. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so she was the one that sang the Canine Crunchies theme.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's just such a great movie. It's such a favorite of mine. I love revisiting it. I love that it's the best 101 Dalmatians thing I've ever seen. I will stand by. I don't like the live action remakes. I don't like both Glenn Close films. I didn't rewatch Cruella recently. I should have. I didn't. Maybe someday I will. That's still on the wayside. I don't remember much from the Disney sequel, the Patch's London Adventure, but I remember liking it fine. But it's this movie,
No, absolutely not. This movie just has an identity in and of itself. It's one of those animated movies that just can't be replicated, not just visually, but tonally. It just has such a calming vibe to it that you don't get from a lot of Disney movies or even animated movies in general. Yeah,
so I still love it. I did want to ask, do we own it? Because I own it on Blu-ray. Yes. Lazy, what about you?
No, I don't.
Ah. Well,
Maybe I'll get it if it's like $5, but like
it's not...
I don't have like a DVD or Blu-ray player like
Right.
with me where I'm residing right now though.
Right. So and it's
Gotcha.
it's really not like on your priority list when it comes to like getting.
I'll get it eventually, I think.
Right.
Yeah, but I get it because like I can totally see why this one's not as beloved. Again, when I think of Disney at its height, you think the Renaissance, you think, even a lot of the older stuff. I feel like I can see people returning to more.
Yeah, like Golden Age, early Silver Age
Right,
stuff. This was later Silver Age.
Yeah, I think it is because of the fact that it's trying to go for a more modern take, and modern in the late 50s, early 60s sense, when it's like, okay, it's not the late 50s, early 60s anymore. This isn't modern. It's very old, in fact. So I can totally see this being kind of like a bit of a disconnect. But like, I mean, like you said, Lazy, it's still a good movie. It's just not one that you consider to be like up there.
No.
Yeah, that's totally understandable.
And that's totally fine.
I think it's just the plot's a bit too simple for my liking, but I mean, I guess that's the point, but it's just like, I prefer something with a bit more meat to it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
But Antic, you also own it. What do you own it on? Because I have the Blu-ray, the multi-screen edition.
I have a Blu-ray copy right now. I'm waiting to see if it gets a 4K remaster because Disney desperately needs to remaster their older animated movies in 4K because in the 2000s they were put through this digital restoration, which was very gloppy and gross. They brightened the colors. They try to fix a lot of the errors, and they ended up creating new errors. The old Cinderella master,
I've seen that,
is really bad. Like there's a moment where after the fairy godmother pulls out her wand, her eyebrow like disappears for a frame, and that was specifically part of the old remaster. Luckily, when they remastered it in 4K, they just scanned a 4K negative, put back in the grain, and it just looked so much more fabulous. And then they did the same thing with Snow White as well. So I'm hoping that a lot of the older ones get remastered. This one, as well as other movies like Sleeping Beauty and Alice in Wonderland, I'd be dying for 4K. Fantasia as well, because I just know a 4K of those movies would pop with the grain and the, classic colors.
Yeah. No, I'm happy with this Blu-ray. I'm obviously keeping it. This is a definite keep for the collection. I assume you're keeping it, even if you want to change it to the 4K. The movie in general.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm gonna keep it. Obviously.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies. It's one of my favorite animated movies, so I'm obviously not gonna throw it out.
Yeah. No, it's such a likable movie. So I'm glad you recommended it.
There was a little Spanish flea.
Little Mermaid. There we are. We're in the Little Mermaid section. Antic, you start. Opening thoughts. Little Mermaid. Go.
Little Mermaid. What else is there to say about it? It's a phenomenal movie. It's one of Disney Animation's best. It kickstarted Disney Renaissance. Definitely a movie that was really a massive movie that I grew up with. I saw this movie when it came out on DVD when I was 6, and it just gets better over time. It's one of those movies where every time I watch it, I just fall in love with it all over again. It's one of those movies that really just brings me back to being a kid again. It's such a charming and sweet movie.
Very underrated gem that no one's ever talked about before, but very good movie that no one's ever talked about this movie before. I think it just came out like the other week, but it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah. I
Yes,
agree.
Very good.
Wow, we all agree. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
I'm trying to sing the Too Many Movies outro.
You got to sing the Dangerous Men soundtrack, actually.
Whatever, however it goes.
I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. Little Mermaid. Yeah, so it's definitely. I would say there's like 4 big Renaissance movies. That being this, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Lion King. This is the last of the big 4 to be talked about on the podcast because we've already done episodes on the other ones. And this is definitely one I grew up watching a ton. I have a lot of it memorized. A lot of scenes have really stuck with me over the years. It's a very special Disney movie, and I think I would only really put it at my 3rd favorite of all time. in terms of like Disney animated films.
Your first two are Fantasia and Aladdin, right?
Yeah, because I feel like with the main four in Fantasia, I've always kind of juggled them, be like, oh, I like this one more. No, I like this one more. I feel like the more times I've been watching them as an adult, I've been able to figure out where I would place those. And yeah, I would say the big four, the order for me would go Aladdin, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King.
Ooh, and Lion King's like the most famous. But I mean, the least favorite does not mean bad.
It's,
it just means
still 5 stars.
You love the least.
They're
basically
all 4 of them are 5 stars. That's just that's the order it goes in. But yeah, Little Mermaid, I think what really gets me about Little Mermaid, and I think it's just an amalgamation of everything. It's the animation, it's the songs, the
animation was very good.
Animation's very good. The songs are very good. Howard Ashman, Alan Menken.
Were very good.
The songs were very good. Yeah, you can't take that away from me.
Songs are very good.
Yes, and I would also say this is probably one of my favorite Disney protagonists. I really like Ariel. The more I like kind of grow up and realize what it is I like about this movie. Ariel's just like one of those really fun Disney princesses. And I mean, it's also just, I mean, I can't really think of a character I hate in this movie too, so it's got pretty much everything going for it. It's just one of those quintessential Disney movies in my mind.
That's one thing I want to talk about, by the way, is is the whole the character of Ariel, because she's very divisive with like general public opinion, I think, because people obviously she's got a lot of charm.
Yeah,
but I think there's another group of people who thinks she's kind of a bratty teenager, or even just like.
Which
I was reading because I think that's kind of part of her character, but also I was reading into this the other day that I think that one thing that people particularly dislike about her is that how at the very end she basically kind of just abandons her family in order for this kind of hot prince that she just met. So what is your defense for that? For her being the Little Mermaid instead of being the little punk ass bitch.
My defense is it's a fucking fantasy movie, and if you're gonna get your underwear in a notch because a fucking teenage character, well, one is bratty. Yes, correct, she's bratty. Because she's a teenager.
Yeah.
Have you met a teenager?
Yeah, she's 16.
Yeah. It's I'm 16. I'm not a child anymore. That's the point. She's supposed to be kind of a little obnoxious and headstrong. But I don't know. I feel like the ending, she doesn't abandon her family. She's going off to do something else. She's being with somebody she genuinely loves. She's, experiencing something new. You can make the argument oh, she doesn't really deserve to have everything work out for her at the end. But then it's right, but this is a movie about mermaids and talking crabs and witches with 8 tentacles. Why are we getting up in arms about that? The fact that a character gets to be human in the end when she was a mermaid the whole movie. It's I don't know. I really just don't see that really affecting one's outlook on life, outlook on perspective. Oh, I get to learn that by the end you get exactly what you want in the end. It's I don't really see kids growing up watching that and being affected by that in any negative way. I remember there was a Nostalgia Critic video where he talked about how people kind of see Pinocchio kind of, romanticizing this idea that if you wish upon a star, your dreams will come true. And how he said some people don't really like that about the movie. It's why? Who is genuinely growing up believing that if you wish upon a star, you'll get exactly what you want? Maybe Disney adults, sure, but I don't really think that I don't think that really should appeal. That should really apply to everybody who watches the movie. Honestly, if you're coming away thinking these taking these Disney movies quite literally, honestly, there's no saving you. I'm sorry.
I guess
you're looking at a fairy tale
too.
Sorry, Lazy.
Yeah,
go
you're
ahead.
looking at a fairy tale essentially. It's a movie where it's a story that's embedded in fantasy. It's basically one where you're not supposed to take it literally. It's basically a form of escapism. For audiences. These are stories that are not supposed to be studied for plot holes or
I think you can still gain like
improved.
positive role models. Like I think Ariel does learn her lesson in the end, you know? So I don't really think what she does is bad. She's obviously a bratty teenager, but she learns her lesson in the end. She just also gets a happy ending because it's a fantasy movie. You need to put in a happy ending for the kids and for everybody to just be like, oh, what a nice movie. What a nice ending.
That actually, I was going to bring that up too, is that what do you know what the original ending to the original story is?
Vaguely.
Yes.
Vaguely. She
I do know it.
Actually,
she turns into sea foam.
Well, yeah, she basically kind of dissolves into sea foam because basically she was given because when Prince Eric or the prince in the original marries someone else instead of the mermaid, she basically is given the idea by her sisters to basically stab him to death in order to because she basically made a deal with the sea witch Ursula. She was just called the sea witch, I think, in the original story, but she made a deal where basically if she didn't fall, if the prince didn't fall for her, then that meant that she would dissolve into sea foam and basically die. And the sisters were trying to convince her to kill the prince so she could avoid her tragic death or tragic fate. And but then she doesn't do that, and so she sacrifices herself for the prince. And then she kind of dissolves into sea foam, but instead of ceasing to exist, she turns into a luminous and ethereal earthbound spirit, a daughter of the air. While ascending into the atmosphere, she is greeted by other daughters who say that she has become like them because she strove with all her heart to obtain an immortal soul. So I guess it's basically the original story was kind of a tale of doing good deeds and not being selfish or whatever. So
sure.
I mean, so this one, obviously, I understand why they didn't want to have her do that because it's gonna be a little hard to digest for a younger audience.
Totally. I mean, look, a lot of early fairy tales do have that kind of dark, twisted nature to them. You know, the original Hansel and Gretel is pretty dark. You know, there's all these different fairy tales that have really messed up endings. There's this one German short story fairy tale thing I remember reading as a kid where a little girl is playing with matches and then she burns in this fiery she lights herself on fire by accident and burns to death, and then she's just a pile of ash at the end and her dog's crying next to the pile of ash, and that's how the fairy tale ends. Is this little girl burns to death.
Oh my God.
And I remember being a kid reading this being that's fucked up. So and you can do that. It's just that's not what Disney is. You know, they're a lot more wholesome, and that's fine. I think both can coexist. So
it's your thoughts on those changes. Do you think they're good in the context of the movie? Do you think it would have been worse if they had the original story ending?
I don't know if I trust Disney enough to make a very dark, because again, famously, the darkest movie they've ever made is Hunchback, and look how that turned out.
It was still very good though.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's as far as they're gonna go with the very dark fairy tale kind of story.
But it kind of still has.
When they did work with Hans Christian Andersen again, they adapted one of his short films, one of his fairy tales, The Little Match Girl, into a short film. It was going to be for a Fantasia movie that never existed. They finished it, and I remember seeing this, and it actually was completely faithful to the story. The original ending of this story was the girl freezes to death in the cold, and her spirit is taken by her grandmother into heaven, and it was basically, faithfully put into a film. And it's not like Disney can't do this. They can. I think it depends on, what kind of movie they're trying to make.
Right.
Or, whereas that is for a Fantasia film, which is obviously more aimed for an adult audience.
Yeah.
Trying to showcase
it's okay,
art
as fucked up all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, exactly. I think both can exist. You can have a very happy, sappy ending like Little Mermaid, the movie does, and you can have a very dark and twisted ending that ultimately is trying to prove a point that, the original book was trying to be. I think both can coexist, especially because the story for this Little Mermaid is told very well. So I don't mind that they made those changes as long as it impacts the story in a positive way.
Absolutely. Because this is a story that, Disney had been circling for years before the 1989 version. Like when
in the 40s.
Walt was still, in the 40s, when Walt was alive, Disney teamed up with MGM and they were going to make a biopic about Hans Christian Andersen. And Disney was going to animate the fairy tales and MGM was going to shoot the stuff with Andersen at their own studio. It fell apart, but there is concept art that floated. And one of them was done by an artist named Kai Nielsen, who designed the look of Night of Bald Mountain for Fantasia. So that was him.
Nice.
And what was surprising is that when the Renaissance was starting and the new team of artists took over the animation studio, John Musker and Ron Clements were looking through the archives and they came across Kyle Nielsen's art and they were surprised that the ideas to the changes to their story that they made in 1989 were actually surprisingly similar to the story changes that they made in 1940s. In the 40s. So so it's kind of funny that they were on the right track on how to adapt this story. And there's been plenty of fairy tales Disney has wanted to adapt when he was alive that never got off the ground. Beauty and the Beast was another one.
Okay.
And there's
Frozen as well. I know that was like gonna be the Snow Queen, I think, back in the day.
Yeah, the Snow Queen was floated around for years before Frozen happened, like even as far back as the 30s.
Yeah.
And and it's interesting when you look back on just the history behind The Little Mermaid, just from its spanning years and when exactly these movies were made. Like when the original version with Wall fell apart, the reason why was because I think MGM might have gotten cocky with their own animation division and we're like, we don't need Disney anymore. I also wouldn't be surprised if the war also played a part in it, because Disney lost a lot of money from the Second World War.
Right.
And also the animator strike too.
What?
And the animator strike, yeah.
What did MGM even do animation wise? Like, I'm trying to remember.
Tom and Jerry mainly.
Tom and Jerry,
they won all the.
Okay, so
Yeah,
they
they
had
won,
their
like,
hat
80
in the ring. Never mind.
Yeah, like they won 8. We won 7 Academy Awards with Tom and Jerry. It's not like we can't spend it on
I try. I know. I did try to be like, what did they ever make? Oh, only the most famous cat and mouse duo in cartoon history. Like, that's something.
Yeah.
Never mind. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And but yeah, when Disney revived this new story, this was around 1985. The animation studio was really in bad shape because it got run into the ground by the old guard. They weren't very trustworthy of the new people until the old guard was completely flushed out, and then they got kicked off the lot and moved to a little crummy building in Glendale, which I've been by. I've seen it. It is a really, really unimpressive looking building.
If it's in bad shape now, imagine what it was like in the 80s.
It was in bad shape from what it was seemed like. It was really crummy. It was just a gutted wreck from what what people who worked there said at the time.
Right.
And
that's different than my job.
Yeah. And John and Ron basically, they rose differently through the ranks. Ron, and both of them started off as animators. Ron eventually moved into the story department, and they both got into like frustrating bumps with the upper management. John, I think, with Black Cauldron, because he wanted to direct that, and then that movie was a complete disaster. That movie just was probably the most tumultuous movie that Disney's ever made. Like
the studio, because it was so costly.
Oh, one of my favorite.
It was so costly, and no one liked working on it. Every single person that wasn't Renaissance wise hated working on that movie. The directors hated each other making that movie. It was just miserable.
And one of my favorite fun facts about that movie, about Black Cauldron, is that when it premiered, it bombed in its first weekend. It lost to Care Bears in its second
Bears
weekend.
movie. That's right. Yeah,
which is so funny.
I'd probably go on record and say that I probably think the Care Bears movie is better than Black Cauldron.
No, it wasn't. No.
The Care Bears.
The Care Bears.
The Care Bears.
Anyway,
I don't like that face he makes. It's like the kind of face that says, "I like children," or something. What was that line?
I touch children.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
but,
it's funny that we're talking about how Little Mermaid was like, originally pitched back in the early days of Disney, because honestly, the more I watch it, the more I kind of see it as a bit of a bridge between kind of old Disney and like into the new era of the Renaissance. Because I feel like, say what you will about older Disney movies, they do have a bit of a different feel to the stuff that eventually came in the Renaissance. Similar-ish, but like you definitely feel there's like a difference. I almost like I can't even explain it, but I don't know. I just have this feeling when I'm watching, especially at the beginning of Little Mermaid. Yeah, at the beginning when you're like going underwater and you're passing by like all the coral and the underwater sea fish and the whale, it reminded me a lot of like the underwater scenes from Pinocchio. And I just thought that was like really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
It's kind of an introduction to like the more grandiose like era for Disney, where like it's even like it was. I know the movie's even been called like the film that brought Broadway into cartoons.
Yeah, and obviously the big reason for that was hiring Menken and Ashman, which was a massive game.
Yes.
And that happened mainly because they had just finished working on Little Shop of Horrors off Broadway, and that was a huge hit. And got turned into an Oscar-nominated movie, which I love, for the record.
Great movie.
Yeah,
great movie.
Great movie.
William's favorite movie.
Yeah, and then Ashman went on to work on a musical that crashed and burned called Smile. Menken didn't work on it. It was just Howard and another musician, and that's how Howard met Jodie Benson, who was eventually brought on to voice Ariel. And then they were looking for, and then Disney was looking for people who could write the songs, and Jeffrey Katzenberg was recommended by David Geffen, who was his friend at the time, mega music mogul. He basically helped launch the careers of like bands like Guns N' Roses, Nirvana, and had a huge multi-million-dollar label. He was the one that produced Little Shop of Horrors on Broadway as well as the movie, and he recommended Howard and Alan to Disney, and Howard was instantly wanting to work on this movie, both because he loved classic Disney animated movies and also because he wanted to get away from Broadway and he wanted to escape the failure of Smile. So it couldn't have been more perfect that Disney got them at the right moment.
The most surprising thing about that statement you said is the implication that Jeffrey Katzenberg had friends.
Considering how he is, you are shocking that man ever had friends, knowing that he is exceptionally crazy and has now basically become an AI shill, and oh my lord.
And he's also co-founder of Quibi.
Oh, everyone's favorite.
My god.
Streaming service that you can stream right now.
Oh my god. I remember when I was in film school, there was a girl, this was 2 years after Quibi shut down. We were supposed to do a project. We were supposed to pitch a remake that we would make and showcase how we were going to get the movie off the ground. And a girl did like the most minimal research possible and found the director that they wanted to direct the movie. And they found out that this director had to deal with Quibi, but they didn't realize that it had been shut down. So she was pitching her plan on what to do with her movie and talking about the option of Quibi being available. And I was just sitting there feeling secondhand embarrassment watching this because she didn't know that Quibi had gotten shut down until the very end of the presentation when someone rose their hand and said, do you realize that Quibi doesn't exist anymore? And the entire classroom just broke out laughing.
You get an F. You lose. Good day, ma'am.
It was so embarrassing.
That rules. I love that. That's great.
It was so embarrassing, but it was so funny.
Quibi 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah.
Quibi 2, The Quickening.
The Quickening.
Quibi 4, The Quest for Peace.
Oh, there you go. Oh, so that's why it's called that.
Yes. But yeah, getting back to it, getting them to write these songs, a massive part why I still really adore this movie is because of the songs in this movie, because they are so good.
Yeah.
They are so well written. They're so well sung. They're so memorable. They're just a joy to watch. And you can just feel Howard's influence all over this movie. Many people who worked on it have stated that it really was essentially a movie where you could see him influence over, especially with the way that he talked about how the character should sound like especially with Ursula. Like he was talking with Pat Carroll, and there was a line that she says during the middle of Poor Unfortunate Souls where she goes, "Life's full of tough choices, isn't it?" And he basically instructed her to say the line exactly like that.
Wow.
This was like the last movie the last animated, I want to say movie that was released before Ashman died, because he died before Little Mermaid and Aladdin came out, even though he was still a songwriter for both those
Yeah,
movies.
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the
Beast.
Yeah,
I said Beauty and the Beast, I thought.
You said Little Mermaid and Aladdin, but
I meant Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, but this was the only Disney. Yeah, you are right. This was the only Disney movie he won the Oscar for. He never saw either the final versions of Beauty and the Beast or Aladdin. Aladdin really was reworked after he died.
Right.
A handful of his songs hit the cutting room floor, and Tim Rice was brought in to finish the lyrics for songs like One Jump and A Whole New World. So yeah, but this is the one where he did get to finish it and see the results, and he did get to win an Oscar at the time. And it's saying a lot, because when he wrote this movie, he had already been diagnosed with AIDS about 2 years prior. So he was pretty sick making this movie. Not as sick as he was when he wrote the music for Beauty and the Beast, but still at the point where it was going to be clear he wasn't going to be with us much longer, sadly. And he just kept working as if he was 100% healthy and ready to go. He just
he out though with Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin though still.
Yeah. I mean when you do,
and the songs in those movies are just incredible. Yeah.
And when you do what you love for your work, you never work a day in your life. So from the sounds of it.
Yeah, he really wanted to like put every A game into everything he did with Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin. Aladdin was a massive passion project for him. That was what he wanted to work on after Little Mermaid. They only brought him on to do Beauty and the Beast because that movie got completely scrapped and he started over because they tried a non-musical version of the movie and it didn't work at all. Yeah. Like, they hired one of like Richard Williams' right-hand men to work on it and direct it, and they sent a crew team to London, and then they sent the story rolls over to California, and they're like, yeah, this isn't working. So they completely scrapped it, started over, let the team roam around France for research, and then when they got back to LA, they handed the movie over to Gary Trousdale and Kirk Wise, and then yep, that's the movie we got.
Yeah. By the way, do you want to talk about the one song that was almost cut out of the movie?
That is, that's probably
of your world.
Yeah. I've heard the story. Like they were gonna cut it for time, but it's like,
well, so like the kids in the test audience were initially bored by it.
Yeah.
And like, they were pretty restless, and so like Jeffrey was like, "Oh yeah, I guess we've just cut it out."
Yeah.
I think it took a couple people. Do you want to? I'm sure Antic probably knows. So like,
yeah, a handful of people protested it. Howard Ashman said, "You will cut this song over my dead body," and then John and Ron protested, and they tried to use Over the Rainbow from Wizard of Oz as proof of this, because that song was almost cut from the movie because of slow pacing by execs, and then the team talked them out of it, and then it ended up in the movie and won an Oscar. And I think it was Glenn Keane who was able to talk Jeffrey out of it, saying it was just a rough version of the movie, the animation's still not finished, so we'll just, when we do it again, maybe when it's in a more finished state, the kids will respond a lot more positively towards it. And then they screened it again, and the kids were a lot more paying attention to the scene than they were in the original version, where the animation was still unfinished. So, which is probably why they were a bit more restless when that song came on. And yeah, Jeffrey would have been crazy cutting the song from the movie, because this is just such a beautiful song. I got to see
put the fries in the bag, asshole.
Yeah, I got to see Jodie Benson. I got to meet her at a convention last month. Really, really nice, by the way. And we attended a Little Mermaid panel, and one of the things she did at the very end is that she sang Part of Your World to us, and it was just so special and sweet. And just hearing that song again, I could just feel, the youth return to me. Like that the song just brings me back, and it's a really lovely song about, wanting more out of life. It's basically the perfect I want song, essentially, which is what Howard Ashman dubbed it. And I remember I found a demo that Howard recorded where he sang the song, and it's so heartbreaking listening to it, because you could definitely feel, his influence on it, and just wanting to keep going, and not wanting to have die and not to be dying from this terrible disease, and also just to be accepted, because he was a gay man, and obviously America was still pretty homophobic at the time and ruthless towards gay people, and the Reagan administration did nothing to help people who were dying of AIDS. So I can feel his pain in the song, which is what makes it so beautiful and so haunting. I mean, you could definitely feel and again, bringing up the queer nature, another reason why he was so perfect to work on this movie, apart from him being gay, was because the original story could be interpreted as that Hans Christian Andersen could be interpreted as a gay allegorical story that he wrote, because Hans Christian Andersen was a closeted bisexual writer, and obviously homosexuality was a lot more taboo in the 17th century than it is now. So you can imagine why he wrote this story, just a way for him to just express his frustration and pain and not wanting to be together, and trying to, hopefully show a little bit of selflessness, and, making sure that people can be happy for who they are. And it's kind of why I think having Howard Ashman write the music for this movie and helping shape the story was just so perfect, essentially. It just completely works.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
that's such an excellent description of, because like it really reflects on Ariel's character, because like, yeah, the song really reflects like who she is as a character, of wanting more out of life. And yet people will still interpret this movie as like, oh, she sacrificed everything for a dude. It's like, how shallow do you see this movie? Like, what are you
very
talking
shallow,
about?
like that song.
As the sea itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, the song is just embedding on wanting to experience more out of life and wanting to understand more from it. Just the way that she has a lot of these gadgets and gizmos aplenty, and who's it's and what's it's galore.
Yeah.
And also it's just such a beautifully animated moment too, because this song was also the reason Glenn Keane animated Ariel, and he's gone on record and said that this is the best character he thinks he's animated at Disney, and that's saying a lot, because he animated the Beast, he animated Long John Silver, he's animated Tarzan, like he's animated a lot of amazing characters at the studio. He's also designed Rapunzel and Tangled, so this is a guy that has design and animate some amazing characters.
He's got some street cred.
He animated the Part of Your World sequence by himself, and he stated the reason he wanted to do it was because he felt it in his heart. He just felt an immediate pull to that song, and he was like, I need to do this character, because they wanted him to animate Ursula initially, because he was the villain guy beforehand, because he animated the bear and Fox and the Hound and Ratigan in The Great Mouse Detective, so they thought he could do, another ruthless, ugly character. And then he was like, I kind of want to do Ariel. And there was a little skepticism because they didn't know if he could draw something like that. And he was able just to nail it, while they handed Ursula over to the great Ruben Aquino, who also went on to animate the adult Simba in The Lion King and other characters as well. And it was so perfect. But both of them ended up doing the roles that they did, because Glenn Keane's animation as Ariel is just so rich and warm, and there's just so much detail in it, especially with the way that he animates her hair underwater, which I found that they took inspiration from Sally Ryder, the astronaut. They just watched her hair floating in outer space, and that's what they studied to figure out how to animate hair underwater, which is pretty funny.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, lots of good animation in this movie. I love there's the certain sequences, like even like the animation for Ursula in like one scene where she's like signing that contract, like it's kind of a scroll that she's like in order to like kind of give away her voice or whatever, like stuff like that. Like the colors in this movie really pop off. I think it probably has the best animation out of any American animated film at the time. I want to say I wouldn't say maybe in general, because I guess because I'm trying to think of what else there would be at the time. I guess Akira came out like maybe a year or two before, but that was like
That was Japan.
Yeah.
It was an anime film that was in Japan.
Right.
If we're talking about American features, then this was definitely like the best looking one that we had in back then, at least.
In late
Yeah,
80s for sure,
absolutely.
yeah. Because when I think of like other
80s.
late 80s Disney movies, there's Great Mouse Detective and Oliver and Company. I like Great Mouse Detective, but that one's definitely a lot more simplistic. And Oliver and Company I've never hated,
Mhm.
but like that's not really Disney like up to snuff kind of animation. Like, yeah, I would
It's not-
definitely.
Yeah, it's not top tier Disney. I like Oliver and Company too. I don't hate it, but I do agree that both movies are definitely a lot more simplistic. Great Mouse Detective was simplistic because that was basically an Exodus movie, because a lot of people who hated working on the Black Cauldron eventually went on to work on that, and it was a lot more of a healthier production. Also, it's John Musker and Ron Clement's
Clements and
directorial
Musker.
debut as well.
Actual debut. That was their first movie.
Yeah. So
And yeah, and then they got on, and then they went on to pitch Little Mermaid, which nearly got rejected by frickin' Jeffrey because he thought that
It's too similar to Splash.
yeah, Disney was initially working on a sequel to Splash, the Ron Howard movie, and they thought
movie
which never
everybody-
happened. And
everybody
they
knows.
didn't.
I
Yeah, and they
thought
figured
it was decent.
yeah, I like Splash. It's a cute little movie, and yeah, and then I think the next day he changed his mind and said you can make The Little Mermaid, and unsurprisingly, the sequel to Splash never happened, and so yeah, this was something that John and Ron did, and there was a lot of like changes that happened with this movie. Like one of the things, which was another thing that Howard suggested, this was another Howard change, and it was for the best, was the way that he shaped the Sebastian character. Because when John and Ron pitched the movie, the crab character was named Clarence, and he was going to be more a little bit British. And then Howard suggested, why not make him Jamaican? And then John and Ron were like, Jamaican? That's
Ooh.
an odd choice. And
Jamaican
then
me
they-
crazy.
You're making me crazy.
Yeah. And then they decided to look into it, and they and that was absolutely the right decision, because Sebastian is just such a fun character. I mean, the other side characters in The Little Mermaid are pretty fun too, like Flounder and Sebastian and Scuttle. They're just so fun to watch, and they have so much personality brought out by their voice actors, especially Sebastian Wright as Jonathan Wright as Sebastian, and Buddy Haskett as Scuttle.
Mm-hmm.
And they just bring the animators really bring a lot out of them, and also Jodie Benson too as Ariel, and also her brief role as Ursula's disguise, Vanessa. I think this might be the only Disney movie where one of the characters, where a princess's voice actors voices both the hero and temporarily the villain at one point in the movie.
Probably, yeah. I can't think of another one.
That was like one of the best like twists in the movie, I think, is like when she kind of uses like kind of like almost like Ariel's voice kind of against her, though.
Yeah.
I think that's why she's such a great villain, is that Ursula, because like she's very good at like weaponizing other people's strengths against them, though, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like she knows how to work with them, because she reads people, and she's able to figure out their strengths and their weaknesses, and is able to really use their weaknesses against them. Which including Triton, like when after the sun goes down on the third day and she's about to turn Ariel into that little mollusk, like Triton stops her, and he's about to destroy the contract, and like Ursula's just laughing maniacally because the contract is basically unbreakable, and she knows that if Triton found out about this, he would have absolutely tried to destroy it to get Ariel out of it, and she's like, nah, we're not gonna get out of this loophole.
No.
Yeah. No. No. And then that climax here, where she grows like big, and she kind of becomes like Super Saiyan, I guess, in a way.
Kaiju.
Like she turns into a kaiju, like, Ursula. Like that's really fun.
Kaiju.
Like,
Scylla.
that's very visually well detailed and that kind of thing. Also, just
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, the way that they animate the final battle, especially with all the waves and the storm, and also even the first scene where the ship gets into the storm and the rain is piling on in the fire. It's real. This movie definitely was the most ambitious film that had Disney effects animation at the time since Fantasia. The supervisor of the effects animation was Mark Dindal, who went on to direct
Right.
Emperor's New Groove.
I noticed that in the
Captain
credits.
Dance.
Yeah, it said visual effects supervisor Mark Dindal. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, so basically, like the fire and the rain and the bubbles, that was basically he was the head of making sure that looks good. Like there were like about 1 million bubbles drawn for this movie. And
also that part of the climax where like Ursula gets stabbed by that ship. Like I gotta say that's pretty ballsy for a PG Disney movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's PG as in Parental Guidance suggested, but you know what I mean. It's like supposed to be partially for kids too.
Yeah, but I still watched it by myself when I was like 5 or 6 years old.
And you're not getting too queasy or uncomfortable or whatever.
No.
I'm just saying, like for like that type of thing, and like for that type of movie, I just feel like it's at least has a bit of balls to it. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, the movie's a lot darker. Yeah, the movie's definitely a lot darker than other movies that came out at Disney were at the time, because I think that was something that I think John and Ron were pushing for, was to make Disney get a little bit more ambitious like they were in the 40s. One of the biggest problems that drove down the old guard was that they were playing it safe. One of the biggest examples of this, which Ron famously hated, was Fox and the Hound, because there was a big incident that happened on that movie, which is that the chief character, when he got hit by a train, in the book, the character dies,
right?
Obviously,
yeah.
And they initially wanted him to die, and then I think one of the directors chickened out, and he was like, "We haven't killed off a Disney character before. We can't do it again." And I think a big reason for why was, again, they were still haunted over by the ghost of Walt Disney. I think they could still feel his lingering effect, because I think Walt felt the backlash of Bambi's mother at the time. His daughter did not like that they killed off Bambi's mom, but that was because that was in the book.
That was in the book, and the story calls for it.
Yeah, the story calls for it. So when they made Chief only break his leg, Ron Clements was famously angry over this, because it was like, it doesn't make any sense for Copper to hate Todd, because if Chief was dead, that would fuel his rage against Todd, and because he just has a broken leg, it's like, well, I'd be frustrated, sure, but I wouldn't be angry enough to kill him.
I'd be annoyed.
That's
so
I would
rude.
be annoyed.
But like,
and so Ron was like, "You have to kill him," and the team and like the directors refused. He actually took it up to the CEO of Disney at the time, Ron Miller, and protested. And Miller was like, I don't care. Just listen to them, because he was not a great boss for the studio. And so I can imagine when John and Ron were starting to direct, they didn't want to play it safe like the old guard were starting to do in the late 70s and the early 80s, which is kind of why I think when Little Mermaid happened and the new guard was completely in full control, they were really able to go back to basics and actually make some more darker and ambitious sequences that Disney kind of escaped from in the 50s and into the 60s, because even though there were still dark moments, you could definitely tell that Walt was still a little bit scarred over certain things, like Lady and the Tramp, for instance. Trusty was supposed to die in that movie, and he couldn't let that happen, so we gave him a broken leg. But it works in that movie because it doesn't really, because whether Trusty lives or dies at the end of the movie doesn't really make any massive difference.
It doesn't make a huge difference.
Right. Whereas Chief and Fox and the Hound, I can see that. You know what? I do appreciate that because they were in full control, then Ron didn't take that as an opportunity to be like, all right, now we're going to kill off this character in Little Mermaid. It's like, no, you can still, because it's like, just plainly killing off a character doesn't really make your movie dark, unless it's actually, vital to the story. But like, I like that they were still able to add some pretty messed up aspects without going like, oh, we need to kill this character, and that's the messed up aspect.
I think if there was one scene in the movie that really stood out to me when I was younger that I thought was dark, and it wasn't even involving anyone dying or anything. It was the scene where Triton enters Ariel's grotto and he's just furious that she
Yeah.
went back up to
Yeah,
the
the King
surface and then
Triton crash out.
Yeah.
yeah, and then just and I just remember just remember how dark the colors were and the sound design of his Triton destroying all of her objects and then the statue. And I just remember just feeling chills watching that scene when I was younger.
Oh yeah,
you
dude.
know?
When Triton begins, he's just like, if that's what it'll take, and he just goes, so be it. You're just like, what the fuck? And then yeah, he just starts destroying everything. I like I like the detail at the end. He's destroyed everything. Ariel's just crying, and Triton in that moment feels regret, like instantly. He's like, oh fuck, like what have I done?
Because he's not a bad guy. He's
Right.
a bit impulsive, but like
impulsive.
that's
yes.
just kind of what fathers are
Mhm.
like overprotective and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he's not a bad guy though that you want to like kick his ass or whatever or something.
Right.
He's
Exactly.
he's got daddy daughter issues basically.
Right, exactly. So
Mhm.
exactly. So yeah, that just shows you that, like, you know what? That just shows me how mature these storytellers are. So like they weren't able to do it in Fox and the Hound, but they don't like take that and be like, oh, now we're gonna make this an edgy edgelord dark whatever.
Yeah,
extreme
it
edgy.
like Black
Rated
Cauldron.
R.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Little
Black
Mermaid,
Cauldron,
rated R,
'cause
only
Black-
theaters.
yeah, because Black Cauldron is very much a very dark fantasy movie, but like not in a way that is a proper dark fantasy movie. You're just like,
Yeah, it's just unpleasant. I remember when I first saw that movie, I saw it with my best friend, and we were just so it just left such a bad taste in our mouths that we immediately watched The Great Mouse Detective right afterwards because it was our next movie and we wanted something to watch that could cheer us up. And it was just like night and day, just which movie was better. And Great Mouse Detective also had dark moments. Like the movie opens with
the father being
a
kidnapped.
kidnapping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The villain's pretty cool.
Kidnapping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to this movie, children. The father's been kidnapped.
Yeah.
But again, yeah, that's part of the story. And so, yeah, and you can absolutely do these dark things. I think that's, that's the Don Bluth mentality. You can do like the most horrific and show some of the most horrible things you've ever seen in an animated movie, but then everything works out in the end. So it's like, oh, well, I guess I learned something from that.
Yeah, like there's a strength to having the characters learn something at the end after enduring some of the most harsh truths possible. And it's interesting you bring up Bluth because that was another thing that really made Disney basically step up their game, because Bluth left during Fox and the Hound because he got fed up with the management. He wanted to do more with animation, and he also wanted to try to get stories that were a little bit darker, wanting to bring back a lot of the golden age mentality that had been lost. He tried pitching Secret of Nim to Disney because it was based on a book called Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim, and they rejected it because I think they were busy working on another story, and also this is the dumbest thing. We already have animated mice. We just finished The Rescuers, and we have an animated mouse mascot. We do not need any more animated mice.
And then
that was genuinely what.
Yeah.
And
then they made Great Mouse Detective, though.
They made Great Mouse Detective and The Rescuers too. So like, that's so bullshit. Look, you know what? Honestly, I'm glad though that he took Secret of Nim to someplace else, because Disney would not have done Secret of Nim justice at that time.
No, absolutely not. I really love Secret of Nim.
It's really good.
It was definitely, it's very, very good. And yeah, you could when Bluth left Disney, he definitely struggled for a bit as well, because the studio lost money for different reasons, like the video game crashed after Dragon's Lair came out, and also when Secret of Nim was not a huge hit because MGM had bought its distributor United Artists after Heaven's Gate tanked, and they basically inherited it, and they were like, yeah, we don't know what to do with this thing. But once but when eventually American Tail and Land Before Time came out, and Bluth was working with Spielberg and Lucas on that. So basically, having Steven Spielberg and George Lucas's names gave people curiosity. And I think people could see, that animation at Disney was starting to really, get a bit weaker, had gotten weaker, and needed to getting kicked right back into gear.
Step it the fuck up. Yeah.
Step up their game.
Yeah. And Yeah, and another thing that made Little Mermaid really impactful, which I'm surprised we haven't talked about yet, was that it got a lot more other animators came into the studio that would eventually help shape the Renaissance movement. One of them was James Baxter, who did a little bit of character animation for Ariel. He had just finished working on Who Framed Roger Rabbit the year before, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit was an enormous movie, and it got a lot of attention, including from animators. A lot of animators wanted to work with Richard Williams in London and on this movie, which was being executive produced by Steven Spielberg and directed by Robert Zemeckis, fresh off of Back to the Future. So naturally, that is a movie anyone would want to kill for, and that movie really ended up being an enormous hit, like I said, and it really got people interested in animation again. So
it also gave Disney confidence in animation again after they were considering just giving it up altogether in favor of live action, similar to what happened in the early 60s, late 50s before 100 Dalmatians.
Yeah, when Eisner took over the studio and Frank Wells, they both had live action backgrounds. Eisner and Katzenberg both came from Paramount, so they had greenlit a lot of movies at the studio at Paramount, like movies like Airplane and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Those were greenlit by those two.
Those old chestnuts.
At Paramount.
Those chestnuts.
Yes, those little chestnuts. Both Katzenberg and Eisner really fought at Disney, who was the one that discovered the Airplane script. It's so stupid. But so when they took over the company, Disney had just started a new banner called Touchstone, and that's what they wanted to prioritize because that was their background. So basically, they got to bring in filmmakers like Paul Mazursky, who did Harry and Tonto and An Unmarried Woman, and also more direct movies from Ron Howard. The Zucker Abrams Zucker trio was brought over. They directed a movie called Ruthless People. Great movie, by the way. And
Martin Scorsese for Color of Money.
Yeah, Color of Money. Yeah, with Scorsese. Yeah, that's another great one. And that was what they were prioritizing, and they didn't really know what to do with animation, which again was another reason why the division was kind of in a messy state because no one knew how to lead this studio. So eventually they brought in Peter Schneider, and he was also a massive reason for the Renaissance success because he became the president of the studio, and he basically got people's morale up, which was that, we're going to make great movies. And that was what everyone wanted to do. Everyone just wanted to make great movies. And they also wanted to stop comparing their films to the works of the past. Like, they were worried, like when people were working on, when Ariel, I forgot to mention this, one of the mentalities that went through the studio was that they finally stopped trying to compare Ariel to previous Disney princesses like Aurora or Cinderella or Snow White, and they were like, let's just look at her compared to like a modern actress, like say Julia Roberts or something like that, just where we can get the personality off of, because that's what an audience will look for in a character. So they were really just trying to focus on wanting to make a great movie, and rather than being worried about whether or not it'll stack up with the classics of the past, which is, I think, a mentality you need to have when you're making a movie. It's not about whether or not you're going to make a movie that's better than your previous effort. It's about making a movie that's good, essentially. Great, even.
Yeah,
because they tried like when they made Black Cauldron, they were trying to make their next Snow White, and that kind of backfired. So just make a good movie in itself, when you're next on your next gamble.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because Black Cauldron definitely was essentially the rock bottom point for them at the time. That there was nowhere to go but up. Even nowadays, I like, you could obviously, everyone has argued, and I can agree to this, that Disney has made worse movies than Black Cauldron. But out of all the animated movies they've made since 1937, that is the one that is still really, really iffy to talk about at the company. That's the one that everyone does not like talking about. It's the black sheep of the studio.
You're never going to see the Black Cauldron ride at Disney World.
Yeah, it wasn't even released on VHS until I want to say like the late 90s.
Yeah, late 90s.
Yeah, it didn't get a Blu-ray release for like decades. Like, even a lot of other Disney movies, like many of their package films and like other flops got Blu-ray releases. Black Cauldron didn't get a Blu-ray until 2019, 2020.
Hilarious.
Like, it is easily the movie that Disney does not like looking back on fondly. So this movie really was an important cornerstone for them, not just to reaffirm to the public that they still had the magic, so to speak, to make great movies, but also, make a fairy tale musical that could inspire again, could, generate interest in the public. And eventually, that laid way for other Renaissance movies like the Big Four, which, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, all of which won Academy Awards. Beauty and the Beast obviously got nominated for Best Picture that year, which is insane to think about.
Oh, yeah.
That never happened for an animated film before.
Yeah,
no,
and then it wouldn't happen again until Up, and
then Toy Story 3, and then never again. Well, maybe someday it will happen again, but not since then.
Maybe the new Goats movie will be nominated for Best Picture.
Goats.
Yeah.
Maybe Gabby's Dollhouse will be nominated for Best Picture.
I'm betting good money on Gabby's Dollhouse. Don't you worry.
I'm getting good money. I am betting money that Skibbity Meow is going to win Best Original Song.
You can't forget Coco Melon the movie. That's coming out next year, and that's gonna definitely get a Best Picture nominee.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This movie really there's just a lot about this movie that's history is just so impactful for not just setting up the Renaissance, but just animation itself. Because without this movie, I'm fairly certain animated filmmaking would not be where it is today.
No.
I'm very certain it still would be a lot more niche. It would be very rare. We wouldn't have a lot of variety with movies coming out nowadays. And even then, I'm pretty certain there's not a lot. I'm very certain that even it wouldn't get given a lot more, exposure to the idea of having Broadway songwriters working for animated filmmaking. And it's interesting because even though Disney was struggling, you could definitely see that they were taking inspiration from other sources at the time for their movies. Great Mouse Detective, for instance, that probably was one of the first animated movies to take inspiration from Hayao Miyazaki. The entire Big Ben climax in the Clock Tower was strictly inspired by his first movie, The Castle of Cagliostro.
No kidding.
Yeah. So it is interesting that this movie would really play a massive part of shaping where animated movies are right now. And there's a reason that this movie is still as beloved now as it was in 1989. And 1989 had some excellent movies like Do the Right Thing.
And
Last Crusade, yeah, a lot of excellent movies.
Yeah, the
Society,
the summer of 1989 Society.
I said Dead Poets Society.
Oh, I thought you said Society, meaning the Brian Usna film.
No, Society, the movie.
Dead Poets Society. Yeah. Well, because I always hear that the summer of 1989 was a huge summer for movies, and that's why Weird Al's movie UHF bombed horribly, because it was up against Batman and all these big movies of that year. And it's such a shame because UHF rules. It's just UHF
is hilarious.
Yeah,
I love it.
but it did not stand a chance against Indiana Jones 3 and Batman. So and Little Mermaid. So you can.
It was later that year though.
What came out later that year?
Yeah, I'm looking back on the summer.
November 1989.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm looking back on the summer, and there were some odd movies.
Ghostbusters 2 was a big flop, I think. Maybe not a flop, but it was a big disappointment, though.
Yeah, I mean, you had to follow up Ghostbusters.
It did open Ghostbusters 2 opened up at number 1, and then the word of mouth caught on, because that movie, critics hated Ghostbusters 2 when it came out. It really got panned.
And also Batman came out shortly after, and that basically kind of kicked it under the bus.
Yeah, pretty much. And then afterwards, Lethal Weapon 2. And,
great movie, Lethal Weapon 2.
Yeah.
Look, I'm sorry, UHF. My goat.
A lot of the big movies of the summer, were Last Crusade, Star Trek 5, Ghostbusters 2, Batman, Lethal Weapon 2. Yeah.
Star Trek 5.
Even the Tom Hanks movie Turner and Hooch topped the box office.
The kids. I remember that.
Yeah,
Honey, I
Honey, I Shrunk.
remember that movie?
Yeah, that was Joe Johnston's first movie.
No kidding.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was his first movie after he left VFX, because he started off at ILM and he basically did visual effects on the Star Wars and Indiana Jones movie. He won an Oscar for the VFX on Raiders, and he did a lot of like the concept designs for Star Wars, like the design of the Millennium Falcon. That was him. That was all him. Like he drew that.
Damn.
Whoa.
Damn, talented guy.
Yeah, good for him.
Kind of guy.
He's got that riz.
But yeah, interestingly enough, I'm looking back on it. Yeah, apparently Little Mermaid didn't even open up at #1 at the American box office. I don't think he even got to #1, which is surprising in retrospect, knowing how massive a movie it was. Like,
it's probably remembered more fondly than whatever opened #1 that same
absolutely.
weekend. What was #1?
Absolutely. This movie that Eddie Murphy tried to direct called Harlem Nights, which is very, very bad. Yeah, like Eddie Murphy tried to direct himself and Richard Pryor in a movie, and it was a gangster movie, I think.
What's it called again?
Harlem Nights.
Harlem Nights.
Yeah.
How much did that make? I'm trying to look at the box office for it.
About 60 million.
60 million? Oh, yeah, Little Mermaid made more though, so.
Yeah, Little Mermaid made more money, and it cost only about 10 million more than Harlem Nights. But yeah, it did, and also there was another animated movie. It did beat out that opening weekend too, which was surprisingly enough. Getting back to Don Bluth, it was his 4th movie, All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Oh,
which
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
I never saw it.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it either.
Yeah, it's decent. It's not one of his best movies. You could definitely see his grip starting to slip on that movie, which would lead to his really, really bad period in the 90s, which he admitted he got. Yeah, which is funny because one of the things I discovered, because I've read his autobiography, was that around the time Little Mermaid and All Dogs Go to Heaven came out, Roy E. Disney approached him and the other staff members, mainly John Pomeroy and Gary Goldman, who were the 2 animators that also were Bluth's biggest allies, and they left when he left in '79. And they offered him to come back to Disney and basically said, we'll put the bad blood aside. You can become a director and make whatever you want to make. And yeah, it'll be in the past now. And Bluth got pretty cocky off of that, which he admitted. And he turned it down feeling like, well, if I go back to Disney, I'll lose what battle I basically started, which was the challenge to make better movies than them. And if I go back, it's just like saying, well, I'm back at the studio. And apparently Gary Goldman and John Pomeroy were pissed when they found out that he turned down the idea of going back to Disney during the Renaissance.
I mean,
you did tell me this actually, and I have thought about it recently too, like just kind of like the director ego going up, and I guess you can kind of tell with like his decline in quality, with his like films after All Dogs Go to Heaven and that kind of thing. Because you've seen that before with like M. Night Shyamalan. He made great movies, then he made bad movies. Why? Because he got a huge ego.
Yeah, because Don Bluth being offered Disney roles, and then he's like, "No, I'm gonna make better movies." And then he made Rockadoodle,
the Penguin, Rodney Dangerfield, Rover Dangerfield.
Rover Dangerfield wasn't technically him. It was made by a handful of Disney alumni, though.
Okay, so that wasn't him. Oh, okay.
I was gonna say,
yeah, it was Rockadoodle, Thumbelina, A Troll in Central Park, and Pebble and the Penguin. All of which are really awful, by the way.
Yeah, I've seen.
I want to see Titan AE actually.
Titan AE is decent. I like Titan AE.
I know. Like it was a huge flop when it came out. It looks cool though. I've seen the trailer for it. And I'm like, man, that looks kind of cool. Actually, I would actually watch that.
Yeah, if you want to know why it flopped at the time, Bluth started up a studio with Fox around the time Pebble and the Penguin fell apart because he was so desperate to get out of Ireland and to get away from this business manager he made a partnership with after Troll in Central Park, because he hated that movie. He does not look very fondly back on Troll in Central Park or Pebble and the Penguin at all. He actually completely disowned Pebble and the Penguin. He took his name off the movie. And
I don't blame him.
Yeah,
I don't blame him at all. It's a very messy movie. And So yeah, he joined 20th Century Fox because they wanted to start an animation studio with the Renaissance booming, and then he made Anastasia, which was a modest hit. And then Fox basically gave them nothing to work with. And then they finally just handed them the script to Titan AE, which was initially pitched as a live action movie. And they were working on that. And then they pretty soon quickly realized that the studio was going to be shuttered because the president of 20th Century Fox, Bill Mechanic, was in hot water, and he was pretty soon going to be fired by Rupert Murdoch. And the reason why was because Bill Mechanic greenlit a movie that premiered in 1999 that Murdoch hated, that has now become a classic. And it was a little movie called Fight Club.
Yeah, that's right. Because they had like zero faith in that because they didn't know how to market it either.
Yeah, they didn't market it, and they hated Fight Club. They hated how violent it was. They hated how explicit the sex was. There were things that David Fincher did in that movie that they were appalled by. I mean, I heard one line where they changed that apparently just to fuck with the execs a lot more, because apparently there was one line where after Marla's fucking Tyler, she goes, "I'm having your abortion," and then one of the execs appalled that, and Fincher was like, "Okay, we'll change the line, but on the condition that you can't change it," and they agreed. And then they changed it to, "I haven't been fucked like that since grade school." The exec hated it even more and wanted it changed, and Fincher was like, "No."
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh well.
You gave your word.
You asked us to change it. We're not changing it again.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, but yeah, so Fight Club came out. Rupert Murdoch hated that movie. He wanted Bill Mechanic fired. And then Fox Animation Studio, which was Blue's new studio, was basically given up upon because they realized it was Bill Mechanic's baby. So after Titan AE came out and flopped because it was not that well marketed, they were like, well, we don't need this studio anymore, so they shut it down. And it's a shame because they were trying to get it off the ground. I mean, they were trying to do a lot more ambitious projects. It has been confirmed that that studio was initially offered Ice Age before Fox took it away and gave it to Blue Sky.
Well,
So,
the rest is history.
Then Blue Sky got Ice Age taken away from it, sadly.
yeah, I in all seriousness, that I don't know why Disney is making more of those movies, because the franchise just has gone. Yeah, well, not even money, because the fifth movie didn't make that much money. It flopped in the States, so it's like,
I don't know. I guess some people are nostalgic now for Ice Age.
Maybe they're trying to put my guess is they're probably going to put in the Ice Age baby, and I hope that hopefully that'll make money for them.
Possibly, I don't know, but I'm not having much hopes for it, but yeah, but anyway, we gotten off track.
Not the first time.
It's really,
yeah, they're all good.
Yeah, but yeah, getting back to it with Little Mermaid, yeah, you could definitely tell that a lot of studios took notice of this, because every single other film studio in Hollywood wanted a piece of Disney's pie right after this movie. They wanted to get into animation. Some of them successfully, some of them not so much. I think every single player couldn't really launch a major animation studio until maybe the late 90s, early 2000s. Because
that sounds about right, because you don't really hear of anybody rivaling Disney until DreamWorks, stepped in. And even then, they didn't really have anything to rival with until Shrek, which was movie 5 for them.
Yeah, there's a lot more. I recall a lot more like CG animation studios coming out of the ground than like animation studios that are starting off with hand-drawn animation. Yeah,
because I think the thing with a lot of computer animation studios was that a lot of them rose through working on VFX and TV commercials and bumper ads and whatnot. Like Pixar was animating commercials for like Coca-Cola and McDonald's and Listerine and Lifesavers before they went on to make Toy Story. DreamWorks, this animation company, PDI, they were making commercials for Baskin Robbins, the Sega Dreamcast, other things. Blue Sky was doing VFX work on some movies, and they did some bumpers, like the Nickelodeon Splatman. That was actually from them.
That was from Blue Sky?
Classic. Blue Sky.
Yeah, that was Blue Sky.
Wow.
Yeah, that was Blue Sky. Yes. So a lot of these CG studios that were popping up and eventually got to work with these film studios basically rose through TV commercials and VFX work, and then basically as soon as toys, and then eventually they started to really dip their toes more into making movies. Like again, Pixar eventually after Toy Story went full time making movies. PDI did a few more VFX work and commercial work until like Shrek happened, and then they started to make full time animated movies for DreamWorks because they DreamWorks completely bought them out. Blue Sky got purchased by Fox, did some VFX work for those movies, including Fight Club, believe it or not. And and then obviously, and then they became a major animation player. So yeah, it is, yeah, like, so yeah, there really wasn't a lot of major rivals against Disney in the 90s that stuck around until the CG boom took off with Toy Story in 95, and then it wouldn't really take off. I think, in my opinion, the moment the CG boom really began to take off was 2001 with what Hal said with Shrek, and also Monsters Inc. and other movies were coming out around that time as well.
Because they never really had any competition until because Shrek is the one that kind of won over Pixar, won Best Animated Feature. So that was like, wow, they can actually beat us at something potentially.
Yeah, I think it was the moment, and around that time, Disney was already starting to lose the throne because for what it's worth, after Peter Schneider was moved up, Thomas Schumacher, to his credit, one of the things that I liked about some of the early post-Renaissance movies was that they tried to broaden themselves away from making like Renaissance-esque musicals, like, which is how we got movies like Emperor's New Groove and Lilo and Stitch and Treasure Planet. And it didn't really work out for them financially, except for Lilo and Stitch, because audiences' tastes, I guess, or just botched marketing and whatnot.
And also Stitch was cheap enough to make too, because it was actually, they wanted that to be their generation's like Dumbo, where it was like cheap to make, but it was still like profitable and, you know, competent and actually really good.
Absolutely. Yeah, like it was very, yeah, like it was made, because that was made at their Florida studio right after they finished Mulan, and Mulan was a movie that was made pretty and Mulan was a movie that also used a relatively low budget, so that was their way of trying to set up a new pipeline. It didn't. It sadly didn't stick around because, you know, the main studio became a mess in the 2000s, and then afterwards, Disney thought the problem was that people didn't like hand-drawn animation, so they moved into computer animation. The problem was not that. The problem was one, the movies were either not being marketed well, or two, they weren't liked at the time.
Right.
Like,
well, you can never really know. Like, I always say this whenever a movie comes out and it flops immediately and people are like, oh, that's the end of that movie. It's like, no, not necessarily. Like, doesn't the story go Treasure Planet was this huge financial flop, and now 20 years later, it's one of the most beloved Disney movies ever? Like, you're never going to know right away. Like, it's a matter of time.
You're never going to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're never going to know that a movie's going to be... You can't write off a movie immediately until you see what happens. Like, again, you bring up Treasure Planet. Like, it was one of the biggest box office bombs when it came out. I was browsing like a store, and there's Treasure Planet T-shirts everywhere nowadays.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like,
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, I think it's like saw T-shirts of like Jim Hawkins and Long John Silver,
and even like, you know, other Disney movies, like, you know, this year was the 30th anniversary of a Goofy movie. Like, that movie's incredibly massive nowadays, and it was like
it wasn't
fine
shit when it came in.
It was okay back in the day, but like, yeah, it's become this huge movie now.
Yeah, like there's a lot of movies that over the years critics do not know what to make of them. They don't do well, and today they're like among the most beloved movies ever made. Like, one of the biggest examples of a movie that was trashed when it came out, and nowadays is seen as one of the best movies ever made, is John Carpenter's The Thing. That movie was destroyed.
Yeah, they hated it when it came out.
Yeah.
So it was like, I remember there's like news reports like that was talking about how like it was seen as like the most hated movie ever made, actually.
Which
is like insane to think about.
That is
like
insane.
Movie, because that movie now is like a 4.4 on Letterboxd, which is like,
perfect.
It's gotta be like, I think it's the highest rated horror movie on the site. So like, does not seem like a movie that is hated or the most hated movie ever made.
Yeah. fuck.
Like, and even as far as like 80 movies from 82 goes, there were like way worse movies that were coming out besides The Thing that were bad then and are still bad now.
Like Sorceress. No, I'm kidding. Sorceress is great.
Sorceress is actually.
I was thinking of this horrible fucking Korean war movie called Incheon, where it's
I don't think I've heard.
It's not good. It's not. All I can say is Laurence Olivier sounds like Tommy Wiseau in that movie.
Yes,
that's great.
That's
great.
That's awesome.
And
that's awesome.
It's a movie, all right. But yeah, I've seen a lot of bad 80s movies. But yeah, you never know when a movie comes out and it doesn't do well at the box office. Like I'm never gonna write off a movie right away if it doesn't work out at the time. Then it
Shawshank Redemption, It's a Wonderful Life, Fight Club, Blade Runner 2049.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that in the theater actually, like this week for the first time. That was awesome.
Nice, yeah, great movie from Villeneuve. Like movies have interesting legacies. You watch it and you never can decide whether or not it's going to be beloved or gonna be a beloved classic or an infamous disaster until time goes on. Because
that reminds me of another movie actually.
What's that?
I know what movie.
I was gonna say Showgirls because people hated that movie, but now some people say it's great.
And they're lying, of course.
But like the thing is though, I went into an open mind because I saw it recently.
Sure.
And Quentin Tarantino, like when it came out, he was like defending it, saying like he loves that movie actually, and he said it's great with a capital great. And I think that's really interesting.
I mean, look,
I heard his retrospective thoughts because I will say I saw it and it's not great, but I don't think it's bad. And I know you're probably like you both will definitely like strongly disagree with that because there is some bad stuff in it, some very bad stuff. But I feel like it's got its heart in the right place. I feel like that ending was pretty cool though. I will say I like the ending a lot.
I think that there's definitely good stuff in it. I love the opening shot.
Yeah,
movie.
There's a lot of great shots in it, and the fact that like Paul Verhoeven like was able to make like an NC-17 like movie with like a huge budget behind it that was basically just kind of a giant studio porno. Like that's kind of like that's pretty interesting though, because that's something that would fly by nowadays.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm like the last big major NC-17 movie that I can think of that came out was Blonde, and that movie was awful.
Netflix.
Yeah, that was a Netflix movie.
So it doesn't really count.
Yeah,
Netflix movies aren't real movies.
I've made my case.
I'm kidding. There are some really good Netflix movies. A lot of them just aren't very good though.
I've made my case for Showgirls in the past because I've done 2 episodes on Showgirls, one on the first one, another on the second one. So I've made my case with Showgirls. The first
one's the greatest movie ever made.
It's the greatest movie ever made. Yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say.
It is certainly an odd movie. I saw it when I was younger, and then I saw and then because the movie is basically Joe Esterhazy, who wrote the screenplay, his attempt to make, I guess, a more risque version of All About Eve, which is one of the best picture winners from the 50s, and it's still very much widely beloved. I love All About Eve. It's a phenomenal movie, and there are definitely things about the movie that are interesting, and you can definitely see why some people have called it satirical, like especially with the way that Gina Gershon acts in that movie. She is so campy and over the top.
Yeah, but if she's the
weird lines in it, there's some like weird lines in it where like it was I couldn't really even tell if it was trying to be tongue in cheek or just like genuine though. But I guess it really is just up to your own interpretation. I know Verhoeven has defended it, saying that it was a satire, but actor Kyle MacLachlan has said no, it was just an unintentional comedy. So it just really depends on whose side you really believe, though.
I believe Kyle.
I think the movie is unintentionally funny. Personally, like I think that it's so insane that I just find myself laughing at it. There's only a few things in the movie I genuinely think are like genuinely awful that I don't find entertaining. That whole the scene that Esterhazy regrets the most is that horrible fucking rape scene in that movie, which never should have been made to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And
Don't worry, guys.
but
It's
yeah, there's just a
satire.
lot of
Yeah.
yeah, like there's just a lot of ridiculous moments. Like I'm not sure if I can read it as satire, but it is funny. Like the moment where she comes into the freaking singer and just like kicking the hell out of him with her high heels topless. It's just so stupid.
Yeah.
But
That
it's
end where
so
she like
funny.
beats the shit out of where she gets revenge on that like one guy. Like that was cool. That was fun.
That was cool. It was really funny. It was really funny.
Yeah,
It's
she
really, really
she got back at
most
those
infamous scene.
rapists. I mean, the girl, her friend still got raped, but at least she kicked him in the balls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The most infamous scene I think is like the pool scene though, where like Kyle MacLachlan and like the main actress in it are like having
Elizabeth
sex or something.
Berkley.
Elizabeth
Yeah.
Berkley. The only problem I have with it is that I feel like I'm supposed to be aroused by it, but Elizabeth Berkley is just not my type though. So I'm not really aroused by the movie personally.
I'm not aroused by the movie personally. The sex scene in the pool is just the reason I find it ridiculous is because because the anatomy with McLaughlin and Berkeley is off. Like they think that you have sex through the belly button kind of thing, kind of like The Room. It's ridiculous, and also the way they're just flopping and flailing in the water. You know, it's so goofy. It's so goofy. Like it's so bizarre.
It's funny that it's a Goofy movie. It came out the same year as a Goofy movie.
Oh, but a Goofy movie's better.
Goofy movie is better. I said in my Letterboxd review of The Little Mermaid recently, I said that it's good, but it's no Showgirls.
Well, that's true. That is true.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true.
Yeah, but it's not as good as Showgirls. Yeah, it's very true. Very true.
It is very true. There is no other movie like Showgirls. It is literally
Even
one of the
Showgirls
best.
too.
Yeah, Showgirls 2 isn't as good. I haven't seen Showgirls 2. It's supposed to be horrible, right?
Oh, lazy!
I've heard Showgirls
you
2
would
is
love
awful.
it. It's really good. You guys should watch it.
Yeah, let's go. Let's watch it after we're done recording this.
Sure.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing plan.
Well,
Yeah, let's do it.
Speaking of recording, then, what do we have left to say about Little Mermaid?
Oh, I have one thing I have left to say. Do either of you have? Either of you can go first, but
No, I didn't really have anything. I'm just bouncing off of you guys.
Nah, I got nothing. I think I've said all I can say.
well, there's one thing I wanted to say before we leave off. So I wanted to ask because my friend Yinsed has a crush on one of the characters in this movie. Want to know who it is? I know Hal knows who it is. Yeah, Yensid's gonna be furious when this episode comes out. But
Good.
yeah, he was furious. He was like mad when I said that. Like when I told Antic that he had a crush on like the pig character from The Bad Guys too. I remember like that night when I told him that because we were watching like World of Worlds 2, I think. And then then he was like, "What?" And then like Hal laughed so hard. Like that was the hardest I heard him laugh like that entire night.
Because he subjected me to 2.5 hours for the Bad Guys episode, feeling disgusting and filthy, and then you say you told Antic, and that's when Jensen was like, "Whoa, wait a minute, what?"
You said you have a crush on her on a public platform. I don't see why telling someone that would be like. It would be like such a crossing the line, though. Well, but I guess that does make me. That might as well ask you the question since we were on the subject. Antic, what are your thoughts on the pig character for The Bad Guys too? Do you think she's a fat, disgusting pig like Hal, or is she your sexual fantasy, or do you want to make her your pork chop dinner? What are your thoughts?
Those are your only two answers. You can only have one of two of
Those
those.
3 answers.
What's the
For you,
third?
if you want to make her your pork chop dinner.
Okay, yeah, three answers. You can only answer one of them.
Oh, you want me to pick, do you?
Yeah.
I like this movie, but I do not talk about my sexual fantasies in public, so I will just say that.
Yes.
So your pork chop dinner. That's your answer.
Yes. I'll take that.
Yes. Yeah.
Antics on my side. Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm not attracted to her either, though.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah,
also another. What are your thoughts? Also, second $1 million question. Does Diane Foxington from The Bad Guys remind you of Spamton from Deltarune Chapter 2?
I've never played Deltarune, so I can't say.
I don't know if you would get that. That's like an in-joke between us.
Antic.
Yeah, if you listen to the Bad Guys episode, and you might understand it.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
just word of advice: never go on the Schaeferless subreddit.
Schaefer subreddit.
So anyway, yeah, Ursula. Yeah, I gave it away. Anyway,
Yeah.
uh,
Ursula's a cool villain, though. Very cool villain.
Yeah, very excellent
very
villain.
cool.
Was one of my favorites. Yeah, there's really nothing else I have to say about this movie, so we can get into the Blu-ray. So, obviously, with every episode, you know, at least one of the movies has to be something I own. Luckily, both movies we talked about today are movies I own on Blu-ray, and so I've already said I'm keeping the 101 Dalmatians Blu-ray. I have the Little Mermaid on Blu-ray because it's like, yeah, it's my third favorite Disney movie. Of course, I gotta own it. And it's the anniversary edition. I'm curious, what do you guys do? You guys own it physically?
I do.
Yeah, I do own I owned the Platinum Edition DVD, and then I upgraded to the 4K eventually once it came out on 4K on the 4K Blu-ray.
Okay. So all
I
three.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. No, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I have the traditional Blu-ray. I bought it at Best Buy before they stopped selling Blu-rays. So
They're coming
I
back.
think they're coming back. Apparently, yeah, that's
They're
cool.
coming back. Can't wait to
Yeah.
get some more because I need to get more
Yeah,
Blu-rays.
and that's like the only reason I ever went to Best Buy, and
Yeah.
then I just stopped going to Best Buy. And so like, oh, hey, I guess I can go back to Best Buy now.
A reason to go back to Best Buy. How splendid.
Yeah, that's the only reason I ever go to Best Buy, though, is just to buy Blu-rays.
What are you gonna go
I mean, I
there
guess
for?
I guess I would go to buy like a new TV, but I don't need a new TV. So like,
Right.
if you want like a regular customer, then sell more regular shit, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
But I can imagine all three of us are a keep with the movie.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Wow. All right then. I think before we wrap things up, obviously we're in the wrap up session. Lazy, you go first. You shout out your stuff, dude. Where can people find you?
YouTube, Letterbox, Blue Sky.
Okay, there you go.
My YouTube channel is called Lazy Bones Inc., not Lazy Bones.
Lazy Bones Inc. And
Yep.
yeah, and Antic, this is your first time on the show, dude. Time for you to shout out your stuff. Where can people find you?
Also, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Letterbox. I'm on all three under the name Animated Antic. Should have the same profile picture except my Letterbox one, which is a little bit more Disney-fied. But yep, that's where I am.
Yeah, and your links will be in the description below. You can just send them to me afterwards. I'll copy and paste them, put them in the description. That's what we always do. So
Yeah.
perfect. Great. This has been great. We've been recording for well over 36 hours right now. This is a very long episode. I'm kidding.
Longest episode. It's longer than the Alien episode,
It's longer
which was over 40 episodes. I mean, 40 hours long.
Longer than the Alien episode. How about that?
It's longer than the Bible.
Longer than the Bible. Longer than
Yeah.
Morshu reads the
It's
Bible.
longer than the longest piece of literature ever written, which is the Loud House fan fiction.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it used to be. I think Smash Brothers had that, but I think they changed it. Now it's the Loud House fan fiction. Is the longest.
Fiction is the longest fan fiction, the longest piece of literature ever written.
Oh
I just think it's so funny.
no!
Oh
God.
my gosh.
Of all media, fucking Loud House.
I know.
All right. Much like the Yinsid Bad Guys episode, I'm gonna go take a shower now. I feel filthy after learning that. So
Yeah.
goodbye, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.